Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP is about to call off his wedding because of his fiancée's entitled family. Would I be the jerk if I call off the wedding after my fiancée's family hired a private investigator and ruined my reputation? I've been with my fiancée, Emily, for about a year and a half. I asked her to marry me 10 months ago. A lot of people thought it was too soon, but Emily has always been very upfront about wanting kids, and I felt confident that this was the right step for us. Before we even got serious, I made a point to be transparent about my past. I have some old mistakes from years ago. Nothing recent, nothing ongoing, but things that could be misunderstood or judged harshly by the wrong people. I told Emily everything early on. She accepted it, and between the two of us, it was never an issue. We also talked early about a specific wedding tradition that's important in her family's culture. Her family practices it, and mine does not. Before I proposed, we discussed it clearly and agreed we wouldn't include this tradition in our wedding. She agreed without hesitation. Around the same time, my mom asked whether Emily's family would expect this tradition. I told her no, and that it was already discussed and settled. Before the engagement, I asked Emily's parents for their blessing to marry their daughter. They didn't raise any concerns, and the tradition never came up. 4 months ago, we had a formal meeting with both families. During that meeting, everyone again agreed that we wouldn't be doing any wedding traditions. It felt settled, clear and done. Or so I thought. After that meeting, Emily told me her mother kept bringing it up privately. She kept asking Emily whether we would reconsider. This went on for weeks. Then, about 3 weeks ago, everything unraveled. Emily was feeling worn down and emotional, and during one of these conversations, she reluctantly said yes to the tradition just to stop the pressure. Shortly after, she came to me and said we needed to talk about having it after all. I didn't even know what to do. It felt sudden and heavy. The next day, I spoke to my parents again. I explained that this pressure was coming from Emily's mother and that Emily herself didn't originally want the tradition. After discussing it, my family still said no. When Emily found out, she became worried this would turn into a no tradition, no marriage situation. So she called another family meeting on her side. I wasn't there, and I still don't fully know what was said. But when it ended, Emily told me she now understood the tradition as a way of honoring parents, and she asked me again to include it. This time, the request was coming directly from her. Her family also questioned why my family wouldn't compromise. I went back to my parents once more. This time, I explained that Emily had reflected on it and now felt it was important. Even then, my family still said no. They were firm. After that, several things happened very quickly. Without my knowledge, Emily's brother decided to dig into my past. He hired a private investigator to look into my history. At the same time, because Emily was struggling emotionally, I encouraged her to talk to her friends for support. After meeting with them, she called me and asked a question that caught me off guard. She asked, "Out of all your past relationships, who did you love the most?" It felt like my commitment was suddenly being questioned. Her friends told her that her family was right. They felt I should handle the tradition issue myself. They didn't understand why my mother wouldn't just agree. They thought I should have insisted harder, even pleaded. When I went back to my family again, nothing changed. I asked hard questions and tried to understand their reasoning, but in the end, they still said no. Emily started worrying that my family didn't love or support me because they wouldn't agree to the tradition. I didn't see it that way, but she did. Still, she accepted the situation and told her parents the tradition wouldn't happen. Her parents eventually agreed. Then the investigation came to light. Emily's brother confronted her about what he found. He was shocked that she already knew about my past and was okay with it. He told her he planned to share this information with our mother. This terrified me. I knew her parents wouldn't understand. I genuinely believe it would end our relationship. So I reached out to her siblings myself and I explained everything directly. I spoke with her brother, and during that conversation, he suggested delaying the wedding. Afterward, Emily told me he seemed calmer and more understanding, but the damage was already done. I learned that some of my closest friends had been contacted and questioned about my past. My reputation was being discussed behind my back. I love Emily, but I feel betrayed. She didn't hold the line when it mattered the most. Her family crossed serious boundaries. They hired a private investigator, threatened to expose my past, and involve people in my life. All because my family wouldn't agree to a ceremony we had already agreed to skip. I'm scared this is a preview of my future. I'm worried her family and friends don't respect her decisions and will always overstep. I'm worried she doesn't protect or defend me when others criticize me. Right now, I'm seriously considering calling off the wedding. The trust feels broken. Her family feels dangerous to my peace of mind. Would I be the jerk? Edit. The tradition is a tea ceremony. The old mistakes involve old lifestyle choices and addictions that are strongly disapproved of by her family. Context: Asian American household. Not the jerk. I have questions, but I don't know if they're relevant really. This whole situation is just strange. At the end of the day, if you don't want to get married, you don't have to. Marriage isn't something you're obligated to follow through on just because plans were made or families are involved. What matters is whether you feel safe, respected, and supported. Right now, you don't. That alone is reason enough to pause or walk away. Marriage only works if you and your partner are a protected unit. Right now, you're exposed. If this is how conflict is handled before the wedding, family pressure, private investigators, reputation damage, then you're right to question what comes next. None of this sounds healthy. Cultural traditions matter, but they don't justify violating someone's privacy or crossing basic boundaries. Your fiancé needed to shut this down early, and she didn't. As an Asian American myself, I get that family involvement and background checks can be common. But hiring a private investigator, questioning your friends, and threatening to expose your past is extreme. The biggest red flag here isn't the tea ceremony or your past. It's that her family felt entitled to investigate you and she wasn't able to fully stop it. That doesn't magically improve after marriage. If you're already feeling betrayed and unsafe, it's okay to listen to that feeling. Calling off a wedding is hard, but marrying into a situation like this is even harder. So let me get this straight. Family disagreement turns into a private investigation? Yep, over a tradition that meant a lot to one side and a lot of pressure to the other. Nothing says welcome to the family like background checks and phone calls to your friends. And somehow, he's the one being dramatic for hesitating. Should I tell my girlfriend, a working actress, that I have inside info as to why her career hasn't taken off? I'm a pretty normal guy in my early 40s who's worked in television for nearly 20 years. I have a decent title, a steady paycheck, and a career I'm proud of. I am by no means some big power player calling the shots. I've spent most of my career behind the scenes, moving up slowly, learning how the industry really works. My girlfriend is a few years younger than me. She's a character actress. You've probably seen her in guest roles on TV shows or in smaller movie parts. She's had a couple of starring roles on TV shows that were canceled early on. She's that kind of actress that gets, "You look familiar, where do I know you from?" comments all the time. We met about 8 months ago at a low-key get-together with mutual friends. I introduced myself and mentioned that I remembered an old show she starred in years ago. It happened to be on a network I worked for at the time. Her face lit up immediately. She told me not too many people remember that show since it was canceled after around 10 episodes. That small connection turned into a longer conversation, and from there, we just clicked. Things between us have been going very well. Well enough that I can honestly see us getting married someday. She's funny, driven, optimistic, and deeply passionate about her craft. That optimism is one of the things I love the most about her. She truly believes her career is still going to take off one day. She talks about it like it's just around the corner. She even jokes sometimes about being my sugar mama once she finally makes it big. For context, being in a few old TV shows doesn't automatically make you rich, especially if you were never syndicated or picked up by streaming services. She does fine financially. She works steadily enough and has been smart with her money, but she still talks like becoming a huge star is inevitable, not just a possibility. Here's the part that's been bothering me. That old show I mentioned, the one she starred in on the network I worked for, was canceled in part because of her. When I was much younger and very low on the totem pole, I sat in a meeting where network executives discussed the show. They talked about ratings, budgets, long-term potential. During that meeting, they specifically said she was the weakest link, They said she looked the part, but they didn't believe she could carry a series. Ratings were already shaky, so they decided to cut their losses. This all happened over a decade ago, long before I ever met her. When she talks about her future, like she's still at the very beginning of her career, it makes me feel uneasy. She sounds like a 20-year-old actress who just arrived in Hollywood and is convinced her star is about to rise. When she gets like that, I feel a knot in my chest. Part of me feels guilty for knowing something she doesn't. If I told her what I heard in that meeting, it could absolutely crush her. Even worse, I worried that I waited too long. At this point, bringing it up might feel like betrayal instead of honesty, but keeping it to myself also feels wrong. A big part of what makes her who she is that optimism. I don't want to take that away from her. I love her belief in herself. At the same time, I sometimes selfishly wish she had slowed down and appreciate what she already has. She's doing something she loves and making a living at it, which is more than most people can say. So, do I say anything at all? Executives have been famously wrong about a lot of people. Careers that supposedly had no future ended up exploding later on. I really don't think you should share this with her. It would only hurt her, and it wouldn't actually help her career in any meaningful way. One meeting, one opinion from years ago doesn't define someone's future. Is she still working as an actress at all? Even small roles still count. Staying employed in that industry is already an achievement. You heard the opinion of a handful of executives in a single meeting more than a decade ago. That doesn't mean everyone feels the same way now. People change, tastes change. Timing matters more than talent sometimes. If you love her, then believe in her and support her. If you can't do that, then you should let her be with someone who will. Being with an actor means understanding hope and uncertainty come with the territory. Update. After a lot of thinking, I realized I'd been a jerk in how I was framing things. I had this quiet resentment toward her optimism, like I wanted her to just accept where she was and stop dreaming bigger. That wasn't right. I chose to date an actress. I should have known what I was getting into. Something else became clear to me. Hollywood is brutally small. Careers can be influenced early, sometimes unfairly, sometimes based on nothing more than timing or the wrong person having a bad day. Some of the junior people in that meeting years ago are major decision makers now. A few days after I posted, our conversation naturally drifted toward her old show. I probably subconsciously nudged it there without realizing it, honestly. She eventually asked me flat out if I'd ever heard anything about why it was canceled back when I worked at the network. At that point, I couldn't lie. She was upset. There was a small blow-up of why I hadn't told her sooner. I explained that I didn't want to damage her confidence or make her second-guess every audition she went to. I also told her how much she's grown as an actress since then, which I genuinely believe. We talked again the next night. She understood my reasoning, even if it still stung. She admitted that after her show was canceled, she had a long dry spell with auditions, which suddenly made more sense. I told her who I remembered being in that meeting. One name really worried her. Someone who had gone on to become very powerful and had a reputation for never giving second chances. We also talked about why we usually dated outside the industry. The gossip, rumors, and trash talking among adults can be worse than middle school. Still, we decided we were making an exception for each other. I promised her that if I ever heard anything about her going forward, I'd tell her right away, because honesty matters more than protection at this point. We're okay and still together. Maybe even better than before. This is a genuinely happy ending. Made me smile reading it. It sounds like you both handled a really uncomfortable situation with maturity. Acting careers aren't just about talent. Luck, timing, and the right people matter just as much. Staying consistently employed and managing money well is already success. Not everyone gets a massive breakout moment, and that doesn't mean that they failed. It's good to hear she's financially stable and thinking long-term. A lot of people in creative fields don't do that. Teaching, coaching, or mentoring are all natural paths if someone wants to stay connected to the craft without relying entirely on unpredictable opportunities. It sounds like she's realistic, even if she still hopes for more. That balance is probably healthier than giving up completely. So this guy's been sitting on industry gossip longer than most shows last on TV.
Right? He just met her and immediately chose silence.
Meanwhile, she's out here working, hoping, and thriving. And he's over here doing mental gymnastics every time she says, "My big break is coming." I, 34 female, found a text thread where my fiancé, who's 32 male, told a friend he's worried about our wedding photos. My fiancé, Dave, and I have been together for 2 years and we live together. Earlier today, I wasn't feeling great and decided to watch a show in our bedroom. We don't have a TV in there, so I used his iPad. We don't use the iPad much, maybe a couple of times a month. While I was watching, he started getting text from his friend Mike. The notification banner just said text message, so I kept swiping them away. They kept coming in quickly, one after another. At one point, I accidentally opened the conversation. Before I get into that, I should probably explain something about myself. I'm not what people would call conventionally attractive. That doesn't mean I'm not confident. Most days I can look in the mirror and feel fine about how I look. But I've spent enough time in the world to know how women who don't fit a certain mold get treated. I've been called a starter girlfriend more than once. I've been told that men who dated me must lack confidence and that they were settling or that they weren't really interested in women at all. Every guy I ever asked out said no. Eventually, I stopped asking. I don't date just to date, and I stopped chasing relationships a long time ago. It took me a while to trust that someone could genuinely want to be with me and that they wouldn't leave the moment someone better came along. So back to the texts. Dave was sending Mike pictures of me. He was asking him which angle I looked best from. Mike replied that my left side was tolerable and said Dave should tell the photographer to focus on that side. Dave responded by saying he thought he did want to marry me, but maybe Mike was right and he should ask the photographer to edit some things here and there. And Mike said, "It would make you both feel better." He also said maybe the photographer should take more straight-on shots since I look best that way. Reading it didn't make me cry. I wasn't even shocked. I was deeply offended. I know I'm not a beauty by conventional standards, but the idea that I needed to be edited in my own wedding photos felt humiliating. I took screenshots on my phone and handed the iPad back to Dave. I made sure the conversation was the first thing visible when he opened it. He asked me how the movie was, and I said it was great. We ate lunch together. I usually wear my heart on my sleeve, and he could tell something was wrong. He kept asking what was going on, and I told him I still wasn't feeling well. He kept pestering me about it, so I finally told him he should probably talk to Mike about his concerns, since he and Mike seemed to have so many opinions about me. He went pale. He asked what I meant. I handed him the iPad and went into the bedroom and shut the door. That was a few hours ago. He hasn't come to talk to me yet. We usually work things out by talking, and the silence is eating at me. I know he hasn't left the apartment. I don't know what to do. My heart broke reading this. You don't need to settle for someone who doesn't love you fully and without conditions. It's true when people say love is blind. Someone who truly loves you wouldn't be worried about how you'll look in wedding photos, and he definitely wouldn't allow a friend to talk about you like that. I know the idea of you being alone can be scary, but it's still better than spending your life with someone who sees you as something that needs fixing. You deserve more respect than that. I tried writing a calm response, but I'm honestly furious for you. You deserve someone who respects you enough not to discuss how to make you more palatable behind your back. You deserve someone who thinks you're beautiful all the time, not someone who worries about angles and edits. The only thing your partner should care about in your wedding photos is whether he's lucky enough to be the reason you're smiling that day. I don't know if this is something you can forgive. I don't even know if you should. I do know you deserve better than being treated like an accessory. Update 1 month later. Most of the responses told me I deserved better and that I should leave. At the time, it was hard to hear, but I took it seriously. Dave and I eventually had a calm conversation. The first real one we had had in a while. He told me he had been wanting to break up for some time, but didn't know how. He said he cared about me, but felt overwhelmed by criticism about our relationship from other people. He didn't know how to deal with it, and instead of facing it, he let things drag on. So I took that advice and left. It didn't take long. I hired movers and packed my things. We talked briefly a few times, but between work and packing, we mostly stayed out of each other's way. I found an apartment and moved in. It's a nice place, and I'm glad it is, but I won't pretend I'm suddenly happy. Being alone has brought a lot of old thoughts back. I've always been aware of how I look, but now it's louder in my head. Talking to my family doesn't really help. They try to comfort me, but it usually turns into comparisons that make things worse. Most of my friends are conventionally attractive. Being out with them in a club is a reminder of how differently we're treated. I've watched photographers ask me to step aside so they can take photos of everyone else. I've paid for more than half of things in past relationships, while my friends are showered with gifts. I'm genuinely happy for them, but it still stings. I gained around 20 pounds during the relationship, so I've tried working out more. Some days I do, other days I snooze my alarm. I've been trying to write a novel. I get a few hundred words down when inspiration hits. I've been drawing again. I even dug out my old console and started playing Oblivion, which has helped more than I expected. My apartment is still a mess. I don't miss him. Being on my own is actually peaceful, but I feel sad in a way that I can't fully explain. Maybe I don't have distractions anymore, or maybe I'm just processing everything. Still, leaving was the right choice. We had both grown tense and unhappy. Living alone has helped me to breathe again. All of your feelings are real, so let yourself feel them. Healing takes time, and I really hope things start feeling lighter for you soon. I'll say this, then I'll let you get back to slaying monsters and saving the world. I was my wife's first real boyfriend. She's disabled, and she's never thought of herself as pretty. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. She was 36 when we met. You're never too old. You never don't have enough experience. Life isn't fair, and we all play the hand we're dealt. Use this time to reconnect with yourself and remember why you're strong and capable. When the right person comes along, loving yourself first will make it easier to accept real love from someone else. Take care, and yes, Oblivion is an awesome game. Glad you left. I know you don't think you're beautiful, but it sounds like this breakup was the first step to self-acceptance and self-love. Whether you find someone who truly appreciates all of you, or you just find love in yourself, I wish you luck on your personal journey. Imagine planning a wedding and worrying more about photo angles than the actual marriage. Right? If you're crowdsourcing opinions on your partner's face, you miss the point entirely. Meanwhile, she's planning a life together. And he's planning which angle needs editing. My narcissistic sister-in-law wants to come to my Christmas dinner. So I'm hosting Christmas dinner this year, and I'm dealing with a situation that's making me question whether I should stick to my boundaries or cave for the sake of family peace. For context, I, 27 female, and my sister-in-law, who's 32, I'll call her Sarah, do not get along. We used to be very close. We were the kind of people who talked often, spent time together, and supported each other. That changed about 2 years ago. Back then, Sarah and my brother had a huge argument. It was bad enough that she pulled me into it and asked for my opinion. I didn't volunteer it, she directly asked. I told her I thought she was in the wrong, and that if she wanted to fix her marriage, she needed to stop what she was doing. She didn't take that well. She lashed out, said some very harsh things, and made a threat that stuck with me. After that, I stopped speaking to her entirely. Not long after, Sarah moved back to her hometown, which is a few hours away. Her daughter, my niece, is 11. She attends a private school in my city, and because I live closest, she stays with me during the school year. Her parents still have custody, but this arrangement works best for school. Her dad, my brother, works overseas, and her mom runs a business in her hometown. There's an agreement that my niece won't be pulled out of school and will finish before any big changes happen. This year, I decided to host Christmas dinner. I invited close family, including my brother. I didn't invite Sarah. That was intentional. We haven't spoken in 2 years, and I don't want tension in my home during the holidays. Later, my brother told me Sarah would be alone for Christmas and asked if she could come. I felt conflicted. Despite everything, she's still my niece's mom, and my niece loves her. I also remembered how close Sarah and I used to be before everything fell apart. So I agreed with one condition. I told my brother that Sarah could come as long as she agrees to be civil the entire time. No drama, no rehashing old issues, just a peaceful dinner. But then something happened that made me rethink everything. My niece recently had a Christmas party to attend. I bought her a cute outfit that fit her style and was appropriate for her. She was excited and couldn't wait to wear it. She video called her mom to show her the outfit. Sarah's reaction was immediate and negative. She told her she couldn't wear it. My niece said she liked it and wanted to wear it anyway. Instead of talking it through, Sarah got irritated and made a comment that hurt her feelings. She told her, "If you want to look like a grandma at your party, fine." And then she hung up on her. My niece was crushed and I was angry. What bothered me wasn't just the insult. It was how quickly Sarah dismissed her daughter's feelings and cut her off. It showed me that nothing had really changed. This was the same behavior that caused problems before. Harsh words, no accountability, and then walking away as if nothing happened. After seeing that, I no longer felt comfortable having Sarah in my home for Christmas. I worry about the atmosphere she brings. I worry about how she speaks to people, especially her own child. I worry that inviting her would turn what should be a warm, calm holiday into something tense and unpredictable. When I told my mom I was reconsidering the invitation, she said it would be a jerk move to take it back. Now I'm stuck wondering if I'm being unreasonable. Would I be the jerk to rescind my invitation? I understand why you're uncomfortable, but uninviting her solely because of a private disagreement she had with her daughter isn't the strongest reason. That said, your instincts aren't wrong either. If you're going to take any action, I think the best approach is to talk to her directly. Set clear expectations. Tell her that you want a calm, drama-free holiday and that any disrespectful behavior won't be tolerated. If that conversation goes poorly or she reacts defensively, then you have a solid reason to step back and say she's no longer welcome. Right now, you're reacting to a pattern you recognize, and that makes sense. But giving her the chance to show whether she can be civil puts the responsibility on her. If she can't handle a simple boundary, that tells you everything you need to know. This isn't really about the outfit or the phone call as much as the history. You stopped speaking to her because of how she treated you in the past. That didn't magically disappear just because it's Christmas. The fact that she still speaks harshly to her own child should be a warning sign, not something you're expected to ignore. You're allowed to protect your home and your peace. Hosting is work, emotional work especially. If someone has a pattern of creating tension, it's reasonable to question whether they should be invited. If you do decide to include her, it should be on very clear terms, and you shouldn't feel guilty for that. Boundaries don't make you cruel, they make you realistic. Update the next day. I decided to talk to Sarah directly instead of quietly uninviting her. I thought it was the fairest approach and would give me clarity one way or another. I called her and kept the conversation focused on Christmas. I didn't bring up her past behavior, the argument from years ago, or the phone call with her daughter. I told her that I understood we hadn't spoken in a long time, but if we were going to be around each other for the holidays, I wanted things to be calm. I said I was hoping for an uneventful Christmas surrounded by family, and that I was willing to have her over because it would make her daughter happy. The conversation went off the rails almost immediately. She became upset and started listing everything she felt she had done for me and my family over the years. She accused us of being unsupportive and brought up old conflicts that I hadn't mentioned at all. She framed the call as an attack on her character, even though I hadn't accused her of anything. At one point, she said she didn't want to come anyway and that my brother was the one pushing for the invitation. That wasn't true. I knew she had asked to be invited herself, but I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. I simply said okay and told her to take care. That was the end of it. She uninvited herself. As strange as it sounds, I felt relieved. If I had uninvited her without talking first, I would have spent the entire holiday wondering if I was wrong or if she had changed. This conversation answered that for me. Christmas will be calm. My niece will feel safe, and I won't be walking on eggshells in my own home. Thank you to everyone who shared their perspectives. I'm glad I handled it this way, even if it confirmed what I already suspected. I'd take her at her word and treat this as settled. She said she doesn't want to come, so that's the end of it. If she later claims she was excluded or misunderstood, that's on her, not you. You handled this the adult way. You reached out, you were calm, and she chose to act that way. That's her making a decision. At some point, you stop managing other people's reactions and just protect your own peace. At some point, you stop managing other people's reactions and just protect your own peace. If she does show up anyway, a simple "this isn't a good time" at the door is enough. You don't owe any explanations. Christmas dinner doesn't need a surprise, unwanted guest to stay memorable. This update is actually the best possible outcome. You didn't uninvite her, you didn't escalate, and you didn't turn it into a public family issue. You gave her space to either meet you halfway or show you exactly who she still is. She chose the second option. That's clarity with no drama on your part. Now, if anyone asks why she wasn't there, the answer is simple. She decided not to come. You don't have to justify yourself or explain your boundaries over and over. You tried to reset things respectfully, and she shut that down. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out. Enjoy your holiday, and don't second-guess a decision that probably saved everyone a lot of stress. So she dramatically uninvited herself and still wants sympathy points? Obviously. That's a classic, I quit before you can fire me maneuver. Bold strategy. Very festive. Nothing says Christmas like turning a tantrum into a tradition. My girlfriend says that I'm being unreasonable by not wanting her to go out drinking with her ex. I've been with my girlfriend for just under 3 years. She's had 2 previous relationships that both ended when they cheated on her. Her first boyfriend she hasn't spoken to in 6 years, and the other one she hasn't spoken to in 4 years. Her first boyfriend recently messaged asking how she had been and just wanting to catch up. She told me about it and told me she was planning on replying. I told her I didn't see why she'd want to bother talking to him when he's not even in her life anymore, but just said that I can't stop her from talking to him. She told me a couple more times when he messaged, but I believe they have been messaging slightly more than that. She mentioned today that he suggested they meet up for a drink with a few other friends and catch up. I told her I wasn't comfortable with her going, and she asked why. I just told her it's disrespectful to be going out drinking with your ex. She said she just wants to catch up with him and the other friends, but I just repeated that I wasn't comfortable with her going. I said if she chooses to go, then that will be it with us, since I'm not going to just sit back while she's going out drinking with her ex-boyfriend. She said I was being controlling, but I just pointed out I was only telling her what I was comfortable with and what I'm not comfortable with. She said I shouldn't be telling her not to go and she'd be fine with her going. How would you handle this? I'm a girl who got cheated on, then had the ex reach back out years later. I think you should start by asking why she wants to catch up with her ex, and what does she hope to gain from that conversation? They haven't been in contact for 6 years, correct? At this point, what does she feel this man has to offer in her life? What purpose would he serve for her? Let's be real here. She probably felt heartbroken, rejected, and not enough when he cheated. Now he's reaching back out and he wants her. She's seeking validation from him that she's still good enough to have his attention. Or it's a weird, show him what he lost out on situation. Either way, this stems from her seeking some kind of weird validation from him. There's also probably a little bit of what if there. The problem is that most stable women who wouldn't cheat recognize these emotions in themselves and work through it, typically in therapy. I get the vibe that she never addressed the cheating in therapy and has always had insecurity from that event. So I would just say that an insecure person is the one who's going to cheat with an ex to make themselves feel better, especially the ex who didn't want them. I think you were very smart to set the boundary. If you go, I will leave. Like I said, you can try to talk to her to get to the bottom of these feelings, but be aware that it may just make her a little bit sneakier. He's reaching out because of curiosity, not to catch up. Y'all have been together for years, and I don't see a need why she would want to catch up with him. Would she like you meeting up with an old ex that's been messaging you? I think your feelings about it are valid, and she's not mature enough to realize that. Yes, honey, go out with this other man that you've hooked up with before, and that is a known cheater. I wholeheartedly endorse you dulling your senses with alcohol while with him, and I will stay home while you do this, because I trust you, and it would be controlling to think otherwise, especially after you got defensive and said, "You can't make me." I realize 3 years is a lot of time to be with someone, but imagine discovering her affair after 10 years of marriage after you've had kids and such. You need to have a sit-down, no BS conversation with her. This is making you uncomfortable and making you question continuing the relationship. I would leave if she protests whatsoever. I had a very similar experience with my ex when I was around your age. My ex insisted on seeing her ex again in a friend setting as they obviously shared some history. She never painted a particularly good picture of him, so I didn't have a lot of respect for the guy. She had been messaging him, and one day I snooped and found out they had been reminiscing about their relationship. She continuously gaslit me into saying it was nothing, and eventually I was kind of manipulated and persuaded into letting her go and visit him to give him a houseplant. In hindsight, I was young and hadn't had a chance to develop my emotional maturity, but I was being blatantly lied to repeatedly. She would claim she was going to do other things, but was so suspicious, and I believed she was seeing him. Eventually, things got too difficult, and she decided we should break up. I asked if it was because of him, and she absolutely assured me no. As soon as I rode my motorbike off to stay with my mother, she moved in with him, and it broke my heart to have been deceived like that. What I say to your situation is hold your ground. This could potentially be a terrible course of action. Though if this is something she is interested in now, perhaps this is the kind of behavior you can expect in the future. Facts aren't feelings, and feelings change. Best of luck. There's a big difference between going out drinking alone with an ex and going to meet up with some friends and an ex. The mature thing to do would have been for her to invite you along so this ex could see how happy she is with you. If this ex is part of her friend group, he's always going to be around. Grown-up people can usually manage these things by just behaving normally. OP. He's not part of her friend group. The friends she's talking about are people from years ago that my girlfriend isn't even in contact with anymore. Which is the whole purpose of a catch-up and makes this all seem more normal than meeting an ex. I don't keep in touch with any exes, but I have one or two that were part of a friendship group from 20 years ago. We aren't all in touch anymore as a whole group, but if there was a catch-up night, I would 100% go and have no problem seeing my ex. Nor would I expect my partner to, or would I have an issue if roles were reversed. I don't know. I think catching up with an ex is totally fine. Yes, it's something I'd hope to talk about so both my partner and I can share our feelings, why one of us is doing it, set ground rules, etc., and get on the same page about it. But if you dated someone, especially in your teens, I can completely understand wanting closure or just to reflect with a more mature vantage point. I think that's healthy, but I'd want to confirm with my partner that that's why they're doing it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Set your personal boundaries and stick to them. Don't worry too much about what society thinks of you, because in case you haven't noticed, most people in our society aren't doing too well themselves. That's something we all learn once you spend enough time on Reddit. My boyfriend bought his female friend a Tiffany necklace for her birthday. I feel weird about it. My boyfriend of 11 months has a best friend, a girl best friend. I've been totally fine with this from the beginning because she was here before me and they've been friends since college. Although I feel it's important to add that they've never had the chance to date because they were both in relationships when they met. She's also been single for the past 3 months. Her birthday is this Friday, and my boyfriend wanted to get her something really special. I thought this was sweet of him until I realized what he had bought her. Now I feel like it's extremely inappropriate, and at the risk of sounding like a jerk, I want him to take it back. He claims she's been wanting this specific necklace from Tiffany's forever, so he bought it for her. He refused to tell me how much he spent on it, but I found an identical one on their website, and it cost $250. To put it mildly, my boyfriend's really excited to give it to her. I bet he is. He says it's also a thank you gift for helping him get through a couple crappy semesters at graduate school. She's extremely smart and was in the same program. Okay, fine, but a necklace? Why not gift card or something less romantic? She wants to have a friend date with him on Thursday as an early birthday celebration, so he's taking her out for lunch or dinner on Thursday, which means they're going to get drunk. I've never had a problem with this girl, but I don't like how close they are. She's always been nice to me, but I can't help but feel like they might have some underlying feelings for each other. How can I solve this? Perhaps I could suggest to him that we both get her something and then have him take back the necklace while we still have time. Any ideas? Update. I had a sit-down talk with my boyfriend this afternoon. He was very supportive and understanding, for the most part. I explained my feelings to him regarding the Tiffany heart necklace, and he immediately agreed to return it. He seemed really disappointed over it, but he said he understood where I was coming from. So what we were going to do was buy her something together as a couple. We had already come up with a list of ideas and planned to go shopping tomorrow, until the friend date. This is where things got ugly. I explained that I was uncomfortable with the situation because I said it felt like she had feelings for him, which he disagreed with. I asked him if it was okay if I came along, and he said, "Probably, but I should tell her first." So I told him to text her and ask if it was okay, which he did right in front of me. Immediately, she replied, "I guess, sad face." As we were sitting there talking, she sent a second text that said, Why can't it just be you and me?" He replied and said he wanted me to come with them, which seemed to upset her because the next thing she sends is, "Weird. So if I invite you to the blank concert next month, it better be just you and me. I already bought you a ticket." He responds and says he can't promise anything. Next thing you know, she texts, "Great. So in other words, your girlfriend's being a jerk and not letting you see me alone. I have to go to work. We'll talk tonight." What the heck? This just proves she's a snake. I told my boyfriend I wasn't going to put up with it and that he needs to start making some hard decisions. Immediately, he agreed and said he'd fix things. He said he'd end the friendship if he had to in order to keep me. So I guess they're going to meet up and talk tomorrow. Oh, and forget her birthday. Final update. It turns out he's not as innocent as I had previously thought, and now I look like the fool here. Last night, I stayed at his place and we talked some more. He said he was going to return the necklace first thing this morning. Well, he lied. I went over to his place on my lunch hour and the darn thing was still laying on his nightstand. He claims he forgot to take it back and will have to do it later. In my gut, I felt like he was stalling me, and I was right. As I mentioned in my prior post, my boyfriend and his best friend were going to have a talk today. I honestly believed he was going to distance himself from her and explain to her that her actions were not appropriate. Well, that didn't happen. After 2 hours without hearing anything from him, I texted him to find out what was going on because I wanted to see him tonight after their talk. He responded and said he just wanted to have a night to himself. Right away, alarm bells are going off in my head because he's sending me short texts and is barely answering any of my questions. I told him his evasive behavior was really beginning to worry me, and he replied, "I'm sorry, I'm just confused." I texted back, "What do you mean you're confused? Confused about what?" He took forever to respond, but eventually admitted he was confused about our relationship. Instead of fighting over text, I went over to his place to figure out what the problem was. After lots of arguing, he finally gave me the truth. Apparently, during their talk this afternoon, she told him she's had feelings for him since college, and it's gotten to the point now where it's hard for her to be around him. I asked him if the feelings were mutual, and he replied, "I don't know." In other words, yes. I asked what else was said during this talk, and he said she basically feels bad because she feels like she's ruining our relationship and getting between us. Well, no duh. That's when he brought up the idea of us possibly going on a break so he can sort out their friendship. I told him I would never agree to something like that because it just gives him a license to hook up with her, which brought up my next point. I asked if he ever cheated on me with her, and suddenly he became very defensive. He said they only fooled around back when he was single. Funny how he never mentioned that before. I told him I didn't believe him because of how defensive he was. He then admitted that she had kissed him during their talk, but he pulled away after a couple of seconds because he felt bad. "But that's all that happened." Yeah, I'm not stupid. Even if it was just a kiss, he should have made it clear to her that he wasn't interested. Now this, "I don't know if I have feelings for her," BS. At that point, I told him we were done. Our relationship is over. I don't want to be in a relationship with someone I can't trust. He didn't even fight for me. All he did was apologize and say that he didn't mean to hurt me. Whatever, it's all BS. All the signs were there, but I chose to ignore them. The flowers, the watch, the heart necklace, the way she acted around him, etc. All the signs were there. I'm really trying to look on the bright side. I know I deserve better. I already feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. My relationship wasn't going anywhere, especially with her in the picture, and I should have ended it earlier. I'm extremely grateful that this happened now and not a couple years down the road when we were engaged or something. I have plenty of great friends and family to lean on for support, so everything will be fine. I'm moving on for good. Thank you to everyone who's helped me over the past couple of days. It's really been therapeutic writing all of this out. Am I the jerk for telling mother-in-law I was mad she brought food I can't eat and giving it away? I, 27 female, had my first baby 6 days ago. The birth went well, but I'm still recovering and in quite a bit of pain, and I've been very sensitive emotionally since giving birth. My husband, who's 27, and I told our families that we'd likely have no visitors for the first 1 to 2 weeks, just to set expectations. But privately, the two of us decided that we would play it by ear and see how we felt. Our second day home with our baby was really rough on me, and all I wanted was my mom to comfort and help me. So husband and I decided to call my mom and have her come over. She was such a major help, both emotionally and with the baby. So we had her come by every other day since. She went above and beyond to help us. Also, my bestie and her husband live down the street, and have been dropping off meals and treats and walking our dog for us, but I don't consider that visiting as much as favors and errands. Mother-in-law found out about my mom's visits and she was very upset, so we decided to have her over for a brief visit day 6 postpartum. She said they'd bring food and arrived around dinner time. I have celiac disease, so I cannot eat gluten. Mother-in-law brought homemade lasagna, pasta salad, muffins, and 2 types of cookies, all full gluten, and explained to me that she was sorry, but she had limited notice and only had time to make my husband's favorites. I immediately started crying, and my husband thanked his mom but took me to the other room and told me he'd take care of it and ordered us delivery on the spot. I composed myself, introduced mother-in-law and father-in-law to baby, and then mother-in-law made another comment about how she wished she could have brought food for me, but it was just so time-consuming and burdensome to make things gluten-free. I snapped and told her she was rude, and I told her I was angry. Towards the end of the visit, my BFF's husband knocked on the door to come walk our dog, and to my surprise, brought us a homemade gluten-free tiramisu. I started crying again and thanked him profusely, and he told me it was no problem and surprisingly easy to make. Mother-in-law was upset because she realized that they'd been coming by and started complaining about how wrong this all was because she had to wait 6 days to see the baby and was faced with my anger. My husband took my baby from her and father-in-law snapped at her to drop it. They stayed and chatted for a short while, and when Bestie's husband came back to drop our dog off, I sent him home with one of the batches of cookies mother-in-law brought, which upset her. Mother-in-law has been texting and calling and trying to rally people against me ever since. My husband has my back and even went the next day to drop off almost all of the rest of the gluten food to our friends, and he told me to block mother-in-law's number if she keeps harassing me. I don't really feel like I was the jerk, but I'm also extremely emotional and sensitive to everything right now, and I'm not sure if I'm reacting to things reasonably at this time. Most of my in-laws are mad at me. Am I the jerk? I really don't get your mother-in-law. First of all, you decide who you want to see and when you want to see them. You don't need to keep it secret, and you don't need to apologize to anyone for it, especially at this point in time. What does your mother-in-law hope to accomplish with her actions? First of all, cooking gluten-free isn't hard at all. Just don't use wheat, rye, barley, and other grains, and don't put sauces or other stuff that contains gluten in the food. Boom, gluten-free. For me, we have multiple things here. 1. She forced her visit on you. 2. She cooked food just for her son and made sure you couldn't eat it. 3. She had to make a couple of stupid remarks in your direction. And 4. She tried to rally people against you. I say forget her. I would go completely no contact. Don't open the door if she visits you unannounced and block her on everything. Remember, she has no right to see your kid, but you have every right to remove her from your life. I'm glad your husband had your back. I'm sure I'll be downvoted, but whatever. I can't believe how many posts I see of women giving birth and saying they don't want to see anyone for a long amount of time after the birth, but their mom is okay, the exception. But certainly not mother-in-law. Even though she is the father's parent, she's completely unworthy of visiting her new grandchild until the mom gives permission. I guess dad had no part in making the baby, so he has no say in who visits the baby. Now I get women are mostly close to their own mothers, but assuming that mother-in-law isn't truly evil and raised a human that you chose to be with, why can't mother-in-law be allowed over when the other mom is? I just don't get it, and it's natural to be hurt when excluded from meeting your grandchild, especially when other random people were allowed over. OP's best friend and her hubby. Phrase it any way you like, but they were helping me, but clearly OP only wanted her preferred visitors to come by. Then mother-in-law brings her son's favorite foods when she's finally allowed to visit, which sadly OP can't eat, and mother-in-law is now the spawn of Satan for not catering to OP's dietary restrictions. I mean, if she wasn't good enough to come over to see the baby until she practically had to beg, why should she go out of her way for the woman who made it clear she doesn't even want her there? And is it really that bad to make things she knows her son likes and maybe doesn't eat often, because I'm sure OP isn't making them for him? Because some people require more emotional labor than you have capacity for. After birth, you are fragile, and it's hard to entertain people you aren't already comfortable with. It's not OP's responsibility to placate mother-in-law's feelings right after birth, especially not for someone so spiteful. You both are jerks. You seem to be a handful, a drama queen who now uses the excuse baby to allow yourself to act like a whiny kid or a very unstable person, and your mother-in-law is somewhat inconsiderate. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend her expectations are unrealistic and that I won't sacrifice my house to move in with her? My girlfriend and I have dated for around 3 years. We have lived separately this whole time, but obviously see each other often. In a few months, her lease at her current house, 1,800 square feet, is going to be up, and we're discussing moving together. She has 9 cats and a dog and a daughter. I have a dog. I own my house. I bought it 3.5 years ago before I met her, so it's about 400 square feet less than her place. She wants me to move into her house she's renting when I have a perfectly good home to live in. I understand her concerns about space and the comfort of the animals, but 1,300 square feet isn't that small, and I feel like it would be a horrible financial decision to give up on my 2.8 interest rate and start renting again, especially because my home value will probably continue to increase. On top of that, her rent is more than my mortgage. She's adamantly against living in my house though, and is acting like I'm a jerk for trying to explain it's a bad decision financially to do this. I haven't been trying to be abrasive or rude or talk down on her or her desires, but she seems to think if I don't move into her rented house, I'm not making sacrifices for her. Am I the jerk? Her main concern is that there won't be enough room for her animals to be comfortable. My argument is that, financially speaking, space is expensive. We need to make it work and figure it out because it's not in our budget to own a house bigger, and renting isn't financially responsible when I own. Part of my issue is that she's currently struggling paying for the space she has now. She currently shares the house she has with a roommate who would leave if I moved in, and their dog, but is seriously considering a second job to afford it. 9 cats? This woman doesn't rent a house, she runs a zoo. Your girlfriend needs an education in compromise. Compromise, it turns out, does not mean she gets whatever she wants and her opinion is right. You're a jerk if you disagree. Absolutely do not sell your house, regardless of whatever else you do. I can't imagine wanting to live in an 1,800 square foot house with 2 adults, 2 dogs, a kid, and 9 cats. Even more so, I can't imagine wanting to allow my significant other to bring that type of scenario into my home either. The zoo would be a deal breaker for me in general, as would her behavior in not understanding how good your position is and why it would be a very stupid decision for you to sacrifice that position. Not the jerk. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that your girlfriend is probably either not being forthright or possibly doesn't even know that she is unwilling to contribute to your house. She could resent that you have a house and she doesn't, and she could simply not want to contribute to a house and property that she has no ownership in. Which, were it the case, would be hilarious because what do you think renting is? Either way, this is a huge red flag. Bruh, some of the partners that these people in these stories settle for, just like, is that really the best you can find? Oh, well, it's hard for a lot of folks these days, Karen. A lot of them just kind of, take whatever they can get. Yeah, why do you think I'm with you? Am I wrong for being upset that I caught my partner saying he's single? I, 29 female, have been with my partner, John, 29 male, for 4 years, engaged for 1. We have our usual ups and downs, however, recently it's felt more down than up. I was trying to get us booked for a getaway for our combined 30th this year, however, my app wasn't working on my phone. I asked to use his, which he seemed somewhat guarded over. However, he agreed and handed me his phone. I sent the website via WhatsApp to him so I could access it faster, and when I clicked on WhatsApp, it took me straight to a conversation between him and another woman whom he hadn't even saved as her name. She was named Pizza. In this conversation, she asked if he was single, and he said yes. She then went on to talk about herself being single, and he stated, "Being single has its perks." He then asked her to send him a picture of herself as he wanted to know what she looked like. She did so, and he called her attractive. Now, I admit, I freaked out. He says he only said it as she has had bad mental health and was depressed, and he didn't want to upset her by boasting he was in a relationship. I was so mad. I texted her on this phone saying he's engaged and sorry he lied to her like that. I admit, I shouldn't have done that. He doesn't see any fault in what he's done. He says it's a non-issue and it doesn't matter. He then turned everything on me and said how bad of a partner I am and that now he doesn't even know if he wants to be with me. I don't know what to do. I feel so confused and upset, and I don't know if I have messed up somehow. I try to be a good partner. I'm not perfect by any mean, but I am in therapy and I do my best each day. I could be better, but no one can be perfect straight away. Update. I admit, at first I didn't want to listen to any of you. I regretted putting it on the internet and that people were just being horrible and they didn't know us. However, the more messages I got, the more of the pink paint chipped off the rose-colored glasses. I decided to ask him if he wanted couples therapy, and he told me, "No, there's nothing to fix, especially when I don't know about being with you." I then asked about pizza. This annoyed him, and he stated, "See, this is why I don't feel close to you, and if you don't like the apology I gave, then that's not my problem." His apology was him muttering he was sorry while scrolling on the PS5. That was all I needed, so we're over. I'm currently at my mom's and about to go on a besties weekend getaway. He's sorting himself to go back to his parents, and I'll have the flat. I cannot lie that I'm not heartbroken because I absolutely am. I believed he was my one, my future. I've cried a lot and feel a pain in my chest like no other. I'll be alone in a city I'm not from as we moved for his job. I know, though, that I will get through this. Thank you to everyone who helped me see our relationship clearly. Ex-best friend refused to pay back loan, so I'm making them pay the IRS. Right before lockdown hit, I had left a bad relationship for good and moved back to my state to stay with one of my longtime BFFs to get back on my feet. This was someone who was like a sibling to me for 15 years. We went through the highs and deep lows in life by each other's side. Once everything was shut down, all my work, freelance and side hustles, dried up. It wasn't until summer that freelancers were included and all of the lockdown relief, and I was eligible for unemployment. The same time, my BFF was transferred to another state, but only for 1 year and then back. They weren't eligible for unemployment because they were still working remotely on reduced pay and hours, but they claimed they didn't have enough money for the move, and their relocation package was only $500 to break a lease and move to a neighboring state in 30 days during lockdown. Since I was planning to go with them, I lent what money I had to help them with the cost of the move. Once we got to the new state, friend needed a car to get back and forth from work instead of ride-sharing, so I lent them more money to lease a car. I started working underneath them because their company was short-staffed for the holidays and I needed income. This is important because ex-best friend knew exactly what I made, a little over $11 an hour. Around this time, I brought up the loan and they agreed to start paying it back in chunks. By the end of the year, they had only paid back about $400 and told me they were getting a nice end-of-year bonus for how well the store performed and would be able to pay me back in full after the new year. We agreed March was the deadline. By February, I was asking if they had gotten said bonus. "Oh, I haven't gotten it yet. I'll let you know." Meanwhile, they had been dating someone really toxic and they were never around and started being distant via text with me and other mutuals. March arrives. Ex-best friend informs me they'll be transferred back to their old store and we can move back to where we came from. Yay! And, "Oh, I'll have to pay you back later because I had to pay off a bunch of credit debt," which was from a toxic ex they had dated before the current one. Okay, fine. Let's get out of one of the worst states in the country, then we'll be able to settle up. Later that month, a mutual friend was hanging out, and ex-best friend told them about the move back, except they said, "I'm moving back," before quickly correcting to, "We're moving back." April arrives. Ex-best friend had to travel to old store for a week to get things settled. I catch them when they're back and ask about the plans. In a rapid succession, they reveal that they've completely done me over. "I found a one-bedroom condo. I'm not taking any of the furniture. You can find a nice place for maybe $1,000 a month. Oh, I'm ending the lease here 2 months early. You have to be out by June. You can keep working at the store here if you want." Long story short, I spent about a year couch surfing with friends in 4 different states. I was battling a deep depression over the horrible relationship I had left, the friendship I had been booted out of, the crap of another close friend, and the general crap show of life after lockdown. It was a terrible time, and I felt incredibly stupid that I let myself become homeless by trusting the wrong people in my life. After several attempts and writing to ex-BFF for repayment, I considered small claims, wrote up a demand letter, and organized all the paperwork. All their social accounts immediately went private. After a month of no response, I considered the time and money it would require to recoup my losses, neither of which I had much of. So I decided this doesn't have to be my problem anymore. They've been sent a 1099-C for cancellation of debt. They don't want to pay me? Fine. They can pay the IRS since they kept my loan as income. I have all the receipts I need to prove the loan and repayment terms, and they know that too. Am I the jerk for telling my son he has to go to university, get a job, or get out? My wife and I have 3 kids. They're 17, 15, and 10. My oldest has no intention to do anything after high school,
at least none that he's made clear to us. So I gave him the same ultimatum my parents gave me. Either go to university, get a job, or get out. I chose to travel the world for 2 years. I had a lot of sailing experience, and my father had a lot of friends in that community, so I was able to sail around the world earning money and working my butt off. It wasn't a 2-year vacation. My family is well off, and I could have chosen an indolent life, but I knew I would be a disappointment if I chose that. So when I got back, I enrolled in university and eventually went to work for the family business. My wife thinks that I'm being unfair to our poor baby boy by throwing him out into the world. I'm not. We have the money to pay for his university. We have the money for all 3 kids. My middle child will probably end up with a good chunk of it in her pocket. She's on track for an academic as well as a golf scholarship. The 10-year-old is 10, and who knows what he's going to do, but he knows the plan. We have not been secretive about this rule. My wife and I agreed that we would raise productive members of society before we got engaged. Her and my son think I'm being cruel to expect him to fend for himself at 18. I've offered him multiple opportunities to do other things. He has no interest in anything beyond his computer. I'm at a loss. I don't think I'm wrong for expecting an adult to be an adult. My parents have already told him that they will not be giving him any money if he isn't in school or working. My wife is threatening to use her salary to support him. I don't have any say in that. I won't actually kick him out of the house, but I will stop paying his bills and cut off our grocery budget by 20%. If she wants to work so he doesn't have to, then there's nothing I can do about that. It's not fending for oneself when the parent tells the kids, go to university, we pay for it, you stay under our roof, or work, keep your money to yourself, you stay under our roof, or choose to do nothing with your life and you'll have to fend for yourself. Not at all. You don't even give him ultimatums about what to study or what job to take. He could bum around from major to major or from minimum wage job to another while figuring out what he wants to do with his life, with all expenses paid. He's not going to get sudden inspiration on how to spend his adult life by staying home and doing nothing. Not the jerk for actually parenting your kid. Karen steals my credit card, gets the cops called on her. So I, 22 female, received a visit from my mom on New Year's. She came over with one of my cousins and we hung out for a couple of days and it was great. The only time things were bad was when she asked if I could loan her about $500 and she promised to cash app me the money back when she got paid next time. I told her no. She tried to argue with me, but I shut her down and she let it go. A week later, I noticed my credit card was missing. I don't use it very often, usually just for a couple of automatic bills. I had logged into my account online to pay my balance since my check came through that morning, and I saw that my balance was much higher than I had expected. There were 3 charges I expected: my electric bill, my phone bill, and some gas, and then several charges that I knew weren't from me. They were for fast food, clothing places, etc. I thought it might be a glitch, so I called my credit card company and I checked my wallet for my card. I realized it was missing, and a nice customer service rep helped me with that whole process. But then I started walking through everyone my wallet had been around and every place it had been left since my last physical use of it. I ended up texting my mom because it was stressing me out and I felt like I needed to talk to one of my parents, but Dad and I aren't on great terms. When I told Mom what happened, she told me not to worry and that it wasn't stolen, she had just borrowed it. To be honest, I did lose my cool once I realized she wasn't joking. She insisted she'd cash at me the money when she gets paid the next day, and that she thought she'd be able to handle it before I even noticed. I told her that's not acceptable and to cut up my card. I deactivated it anyway. She got upset and told me to stop throwing a fit and that she can't believe I'm being such a brat about helping her. Things escalated from there, and I did call her some names before telling her to not contact or come around me and hanging up. After that, I called the police, both in my area and hers, to see which precinct I needed to file charges with. My mom has blown up my phone so much since this that I've had to block her, and she's posting all over Facebook about how I'm getting her thrown back in jail just for borrowing some money, and how she can't understand how she raised such a stingy kid. Am I the jerk? Am I losing my mind? I don't think I did anything wrong here. Not the jerk. You told her no, and then she stole it from you in response. It wasn't even for things she needed either. It was for shopping and indulging herself in restaurant food. Turning her in is necessary. It's the only way to stop this from being your dad. The fact that you said thrown back in jail makes me wonder what she did to end up in jail previously. You didn't do anything wrong.
despite her behaving as though you did. OP's gaming addiction costs him everything. Note 1. For those not familiar with this game, Star Citizen is a multiplayer, space trading and combat game. It's been in development since 2012. It uses almost entirely crowdfunding for costs, and as such, it has players buy in-game spaceships for real money, with the cheapest being $45 and some ship packages having a price of $48,000. Some of these ships aren't in-game yet and are considered concept ships, essentially pre-ordering in-game items. Many people consider this game to be a scam based on the amount of time it's been in development, missed development milestones, delays, and the exorbitant prices of some of its content. Note 2. Prior to these posts, OP made 2 posts where he says he spent nearly $5,000 on the game. OP has spent so much on Star Citizen that he's in massive debt. Pay back what you owe immediately, and don't rack up debt. OP. But I need new spaceships. Sad face. So your girlfriend literally left you because you bought so many ships to the point she had enough of it and dumped you? Honestly, bud, I'd do the same if I were in her shoes. You need to stop. These things aren't real, and some folks have more money than they need, so they can buy things like JPEGs. All you need is a starter. Play the game and earn them in-game. I know fear of missing out hits hard by design, but these ships will still be there and still be earnable in the game. OP. I'm Wing Commander now. I don't know how I got here. I can't pay my rent this month. From every comment you've made, this one is the most disturbing. All of us commenters don't know you. We don't know your relationship or family background. It's hard for us to judge your situation. But you spending money you do not even have is a serious sign. This, more than anything else, is a sign of addiction that even a stranger on the internet can spot. I see many people have suggested therapy, but I don't know if that is a huge step for an addict. I would suggest that you at the very least find people to talk to that can understand your urges. There are many good self-help group projects around addiction in general. Start by going to a group and just listening and maybe telling your story. Even if you don't believe any of us that you have a problem, take the fact that you don't have money for rent as a sign to take the off-ramp before not only your relationship unravels. It can't hurt to go talk to someone who understands. Take care, OP, and know that you can beat this. Update. Follow up to my previous post because maybe you don't believe me. My girlfriend is upset about how much I spent on ships this week. She said she may actually leave and went back to her parents. I had to tell her I ruined my credit score and we can't get a new apartment this year until I fix it. Credit is too bad to rent in New York City at our salary. I kinda wish this was a joke, but I have a genuine addiction. This week, I've accumulated over $5,000 in pledges. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help. Request refunds from support and seek some professional help with your impulse control. There's nothing that anyone here will be able to help you with directly. OP. What's the point? She's walking out. The point is, you have a problem that's literally overtaking your real life. Get help. You posted in other subreddits about how she is actually leaving you, but not before you update your Star Citizen status. You're never going to get above this unless you get help, delete your account, and take things seriously. Your wake-up call was the first incident of spending your money on this game. I would call it mental health problems, but you say down, fixed the issue a bit, then did it again. And now you're single. You still haven't stopped or gotten help. 1. Ask for a refund. 2. Get professional help. 3. Inform your girlfriend of the steps you've taken and tell her that she means more to you than the game. This is insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. A while back, my significant other and I had hit a rough patch. I'm an avid player of Star Citizen, and admittedly, I tend to go overboard with it. A few months ago, during a sale, I impulsively spent our saved down payment for a house on virtual spaceships. Understandably, she was furious and temporarily left. I realized my mistake, apologized, and took on an extra job to replenish our savings. I'm close to restoring our financial status to its original state, though it will take another 6 months to fully recover, not accounting for my personal debt. As part of reconciling, she asked me not to purchase any more spaceships for 6 months. Initially, this seemed reasonable, but over time, I've come to view it as somewhat excessive. Despite this, I recently bought a few more spaceships, and she discovered it, now considering leaving me for good. I thought that by nearly restoring the savings I had spent, I had made amends for my actions. I genuinely enjoy collecting spaceships in the game. She's also concerned about my credit score and other financial issues,
But I'm confident I can You need to stop buying those spaceships, man. But I'm confident I can rectify those in the coming years, given that I've already managed to recover most of our savings through extra work. I'm struggling to understand if I'm in the wrong for breaking what now seems like an arbitrary promise, or if her reaction to leave over what I consider my primary hobby is unjustified. You're the jerk. Here, I fixed it for you. I'm a passionate gambler. One night I gambled all of our mutual savings for a down payment away. She was upset, and we agreed on me working extra shifts to pay back the savings and not to gamble for at least 6 months. I paid back the savings, and I'm now gambling again like nothing happened, and I didn't betray her trust by doing this again in the first place. Now she doesn't trust me anymore and wants to leave me, and I have no idea why. Also, my credit score sucks now, and I still have personal debts, while spending money on gambling again. Why doesn't she want a future with me anymore? What else can she want than a dude with debt, bad credit, and a gambling addiction who already gambled away our mutual savings once? I'm a catch, but she somehow doesn't see it this way. Why? OP, it's not gambling because I own the spaceships. You are gambling on their resale value. Unless you have no intention of selling them at all, in which case they aren't an investment in any helpful way here. You've mentioned in another response that you see them as an investment, and they contribute nothing practical to your life. The very best you can hope for is a morale boost for time spent on your hobbies. And while it's nice to have that, you've gone so far over the line that you've risked and probably lost your relationship. You know full well you're the jerk. You must. Nobody can be this deluded. Wait, you spent $15,000 on digital spaceships in a game alpha that were to be used for a house down payment behind the back of your spouse? After she discovered it, you told her that you would replenish the money and stop buying ships for 6 months? You did get a job, and before both conditions were met, you already bought another spaceship? And you have the audacity to pretend that they are investments in one comment and say that you would never sell them in another? Which is it? Let me tell you, it's going to be a divorce. Please never reproduce and get your addiction under control before ever getting another girlfriend. You're the jerk. $15,000 on a video game? He's lucky she didn't hurt him. He buried the lead too. If you read his other posts, he dropped another $5,000 on virtual crap. Update. My girlfriend and I had plans to move to a better apartment, but I jeopardized our dream by spending our savings on Star Citizen, a video game. This incident has made me realize that I might be battling a gaming addiction and impulsive spending. Despite her initial forgiveness and a clear agreement to not buy more in-game items for 6 months while replenishing our savings, I failed to stick to our plan. This breach of trust led to a major argument, especially after I refused her suggestion to sell my gaming account. Consequently, she's left, and we haven't spoken since. The situation has hit me hard, making me see how my gaming habit has turned from a hobby into a destructive force in my life. I'm struggling with the realization that my actions have not only damaged my relationship, but are also affecting my financial stability, as my credit score is now in jeopardy. The most painful part is recognizing how much I love her and the extent of the turmoil I'm in. I'm earnestly seeking advice on how to address my addiction and possibly salvage my relationship. So let me get this straight. 1. You stole her money to buy pixel spaceships. 2. She forgave you as long as you stopped buying pixel spaceships. 3. You kept buying pixel spaceships. 4. You refused to fix the problem by selling off your pixel spaceships. 5. She realizes you love pixel spaceships more than her and left for good. I mean, dude, I'm sorry, but she's well shut off of you. She's never coming back, and if she did, she'll still resent you. The childish response would be to keep sinking money you don't have into Star Citizen. The moral response would be to sell your account and send her the amount that you owe her after you stole her savings. Dude, I'm looking at your post history. You're in full denial about your addiction. You 1000% have an issue after you spent $15,000 in 6 months on optional purchases for a mobile game. There's no way you can salvage the relationship without first addressing your issue, and even then, your chances are low that she'll take you back. If anything, you need to do this for yourself and for your future. Do you want to have bad credit and be alone and in debt to a game 10 years from now? You need to go cold turkey with this game. Sell your account and all of your spaceships. Lock yourself out of your account and go to therapy. Bruh, I just want to know how rich the people are who made this game.
Am I the jerk for only buying my parents stuff that can't be shared or taken while my brother and his family live with us? My brother, who's 32, has been knocking up his wife, who's also 32, since they were in high school. Their oldest is now 13, but they have 3 more. She's a stay-at-home mom, and he works as cleaning staff at a camp. It's pretty good money, but they waste a lot of it. They have multiple gaming systems, and the 2 oldest kids have very new iPhones. I, 28, live in the loft above my parents' garage. I don't pay rent because my folks want me to save up for my future. I help out around the house, and I buy groceries for my parents as well as myself. My brother and his family live in the in-law suite in my parents' basement. It was supposed to be a rental to get them some extra money for when they retire, but after my brother lost his job, our folks let them move in. I also love to buy them gifts, but my brother and his family always needed exactly what I happened to give them. For example, I bought my mom a very colorful bag from Colombia. It's just a woven cotton shoulder bag made with very vibrantly colored yarn. My niece, who's 9, saw it and wanted to use it for a school project, where she promptly lost it. I got my father a bottle of Van Winkler bourbon since he loves to have a drink after a long day. My brother and his wife found it and drank it mixed with orange juice because it was so strong tasting. So now I do other stuff. I took my mom to go see Anastasia and I got us really good seats. No one else was invited. I took my dad out for a steak dinner and then to a speakeasy in our city and treated him to a $160 cocktail. These are things my parents love doing but won't waste money on. I keep the groceries I buy in the loft. I'll make meals for my parents and have them over, or I'll bring the ingredients and cook with my dad. My brother started asking why I don't leave the groceries in the freezer, fridge, or pantry that they have access to, and why I stopped buying my parents gifts. He says that I'm living there for free and I should give them more. I asked him how much he was paying them in rent or how he was contributing to the household, and he said he was tired on the weeks he was home and that his wife and kids were too busy to help. I work a full-time job. I volunteer at a cat rescue. I do theater sports as a hobby, and I still manage to help with yard work, housework, errands, and helping with my grandmother, who is in a facility for dementia patients. I pointed this out, and he said I was being a little jerk. I said I wasn't stupid enough to leave anything around that he or his family could steal. Now we're fighting, and my parents are upset. His wife called me a jerk for not sharing the treats I buy for my parents. I can afford to buy treats for my parents and I, but not for 5 people who do not contribute. Not the jerk. That's actually clever. I'd keep it up. Sporting events, movies, more dinners, shows, and any kind of experience rather than effects that can be stolen. As for your paying rent or not, that's between your parents and you. None of your mooching, stealing brother's business. My project partner didn't do anything for the project, so I made sure he was held responsible for it. When I was in 7th grade, I was at a private school, and for a project for one of my classes, I got paired up with the worst person in my class. Over the weeks of the project, the PowerPoint presentation that we had shared with each other was only touched once by him, and all he did was create a new slide and left it blank. I was upset. For the first time ever, I absolutely refused to do all of the work. My idiot of a partner thought I was doing all of the work for him and smiled at me every time class started, looking smug. He never even bothered to check the PowerPoint. Little did he know that I had already informed our teacher, and the teacher gave me his blessing to just present my part, and I would be graded on that alone. The day to present came, and we were to present our projects to the entire school. Before the presentation started, he came up to me and asked if he could see the PowerPoint so he could prepare to speak his part. I just glared at him so hard, he visibly paled and went back to his seat, where I continued to give him the stink eye the whole time until it was our time to present. Luckily, I was in charge of the first half of the PowerPoint, so I started things off. I knew I hit it out of the park based on how our teacher was nodding his head from the back of the room. At the end of my last time, I turned and looked at my partner, who had gone pale despite all of his freckles. All right, ready to present your part? I didn't bother waiting for a response and just clicked the clicker. A blank slide showed up on the screen, exactly what he had contributed to the project, and then the PowerPoint ended. It took a few seconds for people to realize it was over, and everyone was pretty confused. Finally, the principal stepped up and asked my partner what was going on. Mr. Freckles looked away and mumbled something about it being on a flash drive left upstairs in his backpack. He was allowed to leave the room to go retrieve it. I stood there in front of the whole school, smiling to myself for 10 minutes.
The idiots still hadn't returned, so my teacher suggested we move on with the presentations. A couple of teachers left to go find my partner, who was quickly found hiding in a closet in one of the classrooms upstairs. I got a 98% on the project, and the idiot got a big fat 0. He ended up failing the class and had to redo the year. Before I left the private school and went back to public school for high school, he had managed to get kicked out of the school program, and I never heard from him again. Am I the jerk for preemptively striking against splitting the bill at a group dinner? I was invited to a group dinner and decided to go. I usually decline because 2 couples in this group are freeloaders, and they split the whole check type. They order expensive items on the menu, appetizers and cocktails, while I get a moderately priced dish and a Coke. I was told they wouldn't be there this time, and that's why I decided to go. Well, there they were. I didn't bother asking what the story was because it didn't matter. I knew what was going to happen come check time, so I excused myself, went to flag down my server, and asked if he would please separate my bill from the others. He agreed. When time came to pay the bill, I handed the server my credit card and paid my bill. I tipped 25%. The freeloaders went, "Oh, I thought we were splitting like we always do." To which I said, "Oh, well, you're bad." But this prompted 2 other people in the group to ask for separate checks too, which the server happily did. After I paid, I told everyone goodnight and went on my way. The next day, I got a text from another person in the group, 9 total, the 2 freeloading couples and 5 solos, that I was a jerk for doing that. They do normally split the bill, as it gives everyone a chance to have a nice meal they couldn't otherwise afford, and it also makes it easier for everyone to split the tip. I told her I would not be guilted to staying within my means and not paying for moochers. Then I said the only reason why I came was because I thought the mooch couples wouldn't even be there because they had been doing this for years. Still, I'm being accused of disrupting the group vibe. Did I? I would think not, because of the 2 that also asked for separate bills. Update. I forwarded the text to the 2 people who also asked for separate bills. They were both upset by the text and reassured me that I was not the jerk. They said they too were growing tired of the moochers and wished they stood up for themselves sooner. Then one of them said that the group vibe was disrupted when I first stopped coming. Everyone knew why, so it made the mooching the elephant in the room, and his bad for not addressing it out of his need to go along and get along. The other agreed, and they both said they missed having me there. That made me feel so good. The 3 of us then reached out to the solo member who didn't ask for a separate check. This person is also the organizer. The first thing she did was apologize to me for poor communication. She admitted they changed their minds about not coming in plenty of time to inform me, but she really wanted me there. She then filled us in on what happened after we left. Everyone ended up getting separate checks, which made the 2 mooch couples angry. They justified their mooching the same way the chick in the text did. They have expenses, we don't, and would it hurt us to help them have a little joy? Yeah, not happening, buddy. The 4 of us are going to start having a new group dinner at a different restaurant. DNA confirmed that I, 39 male, have a daughter who's 18. What now? Yeah, I feel just as you would imagine, but it gets worse. She lives in the US and I live in Europe. I don't know how to do this and I really need some advice. So what happened is that months ago, I get a call from a US number. Didn't answer since I don't know anyone from there. Then again the same day, so I answered, ready to yell at some scammer. A girl on the other side introduces herself and just says that she thinks I might be her father. That was the first thing she said. "Hi, my name is Jane, and I think you might be my father." Fake name. Obviously, I told her I don't have any kids and that she has the wrong number. But then she drops a name I haven't heard in, you guessed it, 18 years. Back around that time, I was in the US for a year on a job exchange with our sister company. Met a woman there, and we hooked up over maybe a few months. Anyway, I gave her my non-US number, but never heard from her again. The girl on the phone asks me if my name is OP, and I freak out and almost hang up on her. She tells me more about her mother, and I just sit there like an idiot. She had found my name and number in her mother's diary, and now as she turned 18, she wanted to contact me. She lives with her relatives now since her mother is unable to take care of herself for some reason. I still don't know the details there. She asks me if I'd be willing to do an ancestry DNA test and even offered to pay for it. She ends by saying I should think about it and asks if she can call me again. I just say sure and we hang up. I swear I was about to faint right then and there. The whole conversation lasted like 5 minutes.
I end up taking the test and we talk a few more times. The test took forever, but yesterday she sent me a screenshot of her profile matching 50% to mine. I mean, that's just it, right? We haven't spoken since, just messaged some. I lied and told her I've been busy and we'll talk later, which now makes me feel like a jerk. Up until this point, I've kept it together, holding on to the thought that I'm probably not her dad, but now I can't deny it. It's probably been half my life since I last cried. I haven't told anyone this. I was kinda hoping the DNA test would come back negative and that I wouldn't have to. How to even break this to my family? I just know they'll all want her number so they can call her, and then they would start flying over to see her or bringing her here. They're really pushy like that. My mom is going to freak out. I don't see my family more than a few times a year, but we'll all get together during Easter. Should I do it then with all of them at once, at one place? I have a picture of Jane, but not much more info than what I've written here. I'm the youngest sibling, and now I suddenly have the oldest of the cousins in the next generation, and I never wanted kids at all. I just don't like them and hate being tied up. Even had a vasectomy since then. And that's the easy part. The real problem is what to say to Jane. Can some sane person give an example of what to say? I promise to call her tomorrow. Has anyone discovered they have an unknown kid? If so, what do you do? How did it go? How did you connect? What happened when you met for the first time, and what did your family say? I'm embarrassed by this, but is there any risk of me having to pay child support retroactively? I can probably afford it, but I really don't want to. Edit. I apologize for the abomination of a text above. Blame the alcohol. 2. Some seem to think the impression that I and my family are wealthy. This is not so. I wrote in a comment that knowing my family, they would probably rent a private jet and fly her here. That was a joke commenting on what they would want to do, not what they could do. No, I'm not wealthy either. In the post I wrote, I can probably afford it, but I don't really want to. And I meant that I'd hate to suddenly have something like 10% of my savings left overnight. Just guessing here, no idea what the actual sum would be. I'm sure anyone here would consider that factor. Anyway, someone said the limit is 3 years back. I don't know that. I can be a jerk sometimes, but I'm not some monster. The money question was a question, not the question. And yes, I have had my number for a long time. Never had a reason to change it. We had our first video call yesterday, and it was a long conversation. I had a list of things to bring up, mostly from suggestions here, so I'm grateful for that. Most of it was quite personal for both of us, so I won't write it here. But it boils down to that we both want to continue to stay in touch and get to know each other. We also want to meet at some point, even if we don't know when. Her family knows of me, and they will join a call in the future so I can speak with them as well. I will hold off on telling my family for a while, but I will tell them one at a time. Wow, she sounds super mature. I remember finding out about my dad at 18. Connecting with him and that side of the family was really important to my sense of self. OP, absolutely take some time to get yourself in order, but please don't deny her the opportunity to connect with you and your family in the longer term. She sounds like she's had a fairly hard life with a mother with health issues and probably mostly raising herself. That's probably led to her maturity, but she will likely really blossom getting to meet all of her previously unknown relatives. Your family sounds really involved and affectionate, and that could be a really balm to her soul. I can't sell food? Fine, I'll sell the plates then. 14-year-old me was a menace to society. She had her fair share of respect for authority and rules, but if you tried to impose a ridiculous rule on her and she found the tiniest of loopholes, she'd exploit it to kingdom come. Set the scene. I'm in middle school and it's almost Easter, so every class is putting up a kiosk for a bazaar. You're allowed to sell anything, crafts, pastries, art, etc. My class wants to make some money to fund a trip. I've always liked cooking and making desserts, so I offered to make crepes for us to sell. I got up at an ungodly hour every morning to make them and make sure they were fresh. I wear gloves and I wear a hairnet and make sure to sanitize everything to ensure it was safe. A classmate brings bananas because his dad owns a grocery store. Someone else brings honey their relatives sent to them because they live in a rural area, etc. You get the point. Team effort. We're up and running in no time and making mad bank. At lunch break, we always have a huge queue of kids waiting to buy our crepes. Unfortunately, that means that the other kiosks aren't getting as much business. We're on good terms with most of the kids from the other kiosks and they're chill about it. One kiosk has more traffic than others because they're giving out 1 to 2 homemade cookies with every purchase. So after a few days, the girls from the cookie kiosk come over to us, along with the headmaster. He says that we can't sell food anymore because it's unfair to the other kiosks. I point out that the girls are also giving out cookies, to which he replies, "You can give out whatever you want for free, including food, but you can't sell it. It's unfair competition." Again, if he had shut it down because of a health concern, we would have dropped it at the bat of an eye. Health is no joke. But claiming that it was unfair that we had a good business idea just didn't sit right with me. Everyone else was free to do what we were doing. I keep thinking about what he said. You can see where this is going, right? We were serving the crepes on those generic white paper plates. So I buy a food-safe marker, flip some plates over, and start doodling. And some classmates with a knack for art follow suit. We mostly did cartoon and anime characters. Then I hung some plates up around our kiosk and changed our sign to cartoon character art. $2 a piece, plus a crepe of your choice with every purchase. And we are back in business. Just like clockwork, the cookie kiosk girls are back at our kiosk with the headmaster again the next day. "I thought I made myself clear," he says. "You did, sir," I reply and point at the sign. After a long silence, a calm facepalm, and a long, "I don't think I get paid enough for this," sigh, he relents and I give him a crepe on the house. He also suggested I become a lawyer.
Am I the jerk for missing an actual emergency because I turned off my phone to avoid my wife's unnecessary contact attempts? My best friend, 31 male, and I, 27 male, have a tradition of taking a yearly weekend trip together that's phone-free. We've been doing this for a decade now. These weekend trips consist of us staying in a suite and exploring the city, not traversing the wilderness, so it's not like we're completely disconnected. Still, we like to keep one on hand for navigation and emergency purposes, and it would usually be friend's phone that we brought along. Friend and I left for our trip this year 2 Fridays ago to make use of the long weekend. This was the first time I've gone on one of these trips since my wife and I moved in together, got engaged, or got married. However, we were dating for the last 2 years worth of trips, 2021 and 2022, and she seemed fine during that time. I would just tell her I was going to be busy for the weekend and she'd leave me alone. I understand that there are different expectations once you get married, but I didn't expect for the 180 in behavior. My wife all but demanded I take my phone as well in case she needed to get a hold of me, despite her having my friend's number. I let her know I had arrived, and immediately after that she was texting me and asking me how things were. Then again asking me another question when I didn't respond to the first one. I eventually muted our text conversation because I was sick of the phone buzzing. She called me a few hours later and asked why I wasn't responding to her texts. I reiterated that this was supposed to be a no-phone weekend and kept the call short despite her trying to drag out the conversation. She called me once more after this. When I answered and found out it wasn't an emergency, I simply turned off my phone. The calls then started coming in from my friend and he followed suit. We spent the rest of the weekend with our phones off until the drive back on Monday. I called my wife and informed her that we were about 30 minutes away from my place, and she was furious. She said that there ended up being an emergency. Her sister got into a car accident that won't affect her long term, but still resulted in broken bones, and that I had just ignored her the entire time when she needed me. I told her that I was very sorry to hear about her sister, but it wasn't my fault she had essentially forced my hand into cutting off means of communication. She went to stay with a friend before I arrived home that night, and has since come home, but she's still fuming. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm politely asking everyone to stop making harmful accusations about my friend and the nature of our relationship when we were younger. It's making me uncomfortable, and not in the "I'm having an epiphany" way that you guys are hoping, but in the "you're jumping to incredibly crude conclusions about someone I love and trust based on a tiny snippet into our life. Edit 2. Thank you for the kind messages. I just checked them expecting more anger, but instead I found lots of compassion. I appreciate that so much. Not the jerk. Her sister getting into what sounds like a relatively minor accident is not an emergency. This is beyond ridiculous. How is it different from you being in another country and having no service or something? People are allowed to still live their lives despite being married. You're not tethered to your spouse. Am I the jerk for taking my sister's dog after she gave my puppy away? I know the title sounds goofy, and you might think that I'm the bad guy here. But I, 24, female, had a 6-month-old greyhound pup, and I named him Goose. I had always wanted a greyhound, and I was excited. I was planning on visiting another state with a few girlfriends of mine for only a week. I needed someone to watch Goose. My sister, May, who's 32, offered to watch him, and I told her I would send her emergency money for Goose, for food, toys, and whatever else he needs. She agreed, and my niece, who's 7, loves Goose, so I thought everything was great. I went on my travel with my friends, and it was lovely and great, but on the last day, May called to say Goose ran off and she can't find him. I was very devastated when I heard that. So I came home from my travel a bit early to see if I could find Goose, but I couldn't. I asked May how he got out. She told me she just let him out so he could stretch his legs. After 20 minutes, she went to go get him and saw that he wasn't in her backyard. She panicked, and that's when she called me. For a while, I was just depressed. All my friends tried to cheer me up. It held for a little while, but my best friend Cora found on Facebook a picture of a small family with my dog Goose. It was one of my niece's friends, so I hurried on and contacted them to tell them that was my missing dog, Goose, asking if I can have him back. They said no, and that May said I didn't want him back. I begged and said he's under my name and chipped, and I never said I didn't want him. It was all false. I was in another state for vacation. May was supposed to watch him and not give him away. I told them I would pay them however much just so I can have him back. They just blocked me. I went over to May, and when she opened the door, I freaked out, demanding that she tell me why she gave my dog away. She said that wasn't true, that he ran off. I told her to cut the crap and tell me the truth after I showed her the pictures and messages. She told me she needed the money from my niece, that the money they needed was more important than a dumb dog. So I barged into her house and I took her dog, Daisy. She yelled at me that I can't take Daisy. I told her that since she gave my pup away, I can take hers. Since my mental health is more important than a dumb dog, I said she better get Goose back or I will take legal action. I left with Daisy, and I'm now sitting at home wondering if I'm the jerk. Everyone sucks here. Take your dog back. If he's chipped under your name, then just report him stolen and enlist the authorities' help in retrieving him. Theft of your dog doesn't give you the right to steal her dog. Just call the cops and get your dog back. They bought stolen property and you can prove the dog is yours. Suspended for being a minute late? Fine. Enjoy handling the biggest project without me. So I'm Mark, and for the past 5 years, I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager, Susan. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea to revolutionize the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everyone's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy, considering we're all seasoned professionals, not school kids. But Susan was adamant, and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Just my luck, I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam. The second was due to a power outage that prevented my alarm from going off. And the third, well, I overslept. Each time I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care. She got me with a suspension notice. I was fuming, but then I remembered something important, our employee handbook. I had read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. A plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical project for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and I handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee handbook suspension policy. I told her, as per company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately and will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, including the Johnson Project. The color drained from her face. "You can't just leave the Johnson Project," she exclaimed, but I just shrugged and said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want me to break the rules." I gathered my things and I left the office. The fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me, and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. I explained that I was merely following company policy as enforced by Susan. Long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted and I was back at work the next day. The best part? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She's still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. So there you have it, folks. Sometimes following the rules a little too closely can be the best form of rebellion. And always, always know your employee handbook. Am I the jerk for not allowing my mother-in-law to come over to my house unannounced? I've been with my husband for 3.5 years and married just over 1 year. This past November, we had our first kid. My husband is an only child, and his father was never in the picture. Him and his mom have never really been close. Now for a little backstory. We're both at odds with my mother-in-law, and it all started less than 24 hours after I had my son. My husband and I told both my mother-in-law and my mother that we did not want our son's birth turned into a photo op. People taking pictures of me have always made me uncomfortable. My son had some complications immediately after he was born, and he was rushed to the NICU. I wasn't able to see him for roughly 9 hours. Once I was allowed to go into the NICU, my husband went with me as this was the first time I was officially meeting my newborn son. Next thing I know, I look up and I see my mother-in-law using this as an opportunity for a photo op. I was fuming. These were not the first pictures I wanted of my son or of my husband and I with our son. The next morning, my mother-in-law decided she wanted to come back and see our son, who is now safe and in our room. I'm running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, but still said it was okay for her to come. Once she was there, I didn't really interact with her. I was just trying to rest. After she left, she ended up calling my husband. This is when he decided to call her out on the photo op and how she completely violated a boundary we had clearly set. Her response floored me. She began yelling at my husband, saying that I hate her, that I don't like her and I never have, that I am so hateful towards her. She said her reasoning for taking the pictures was because she thought that we would want to remember that moment, and to her it wasn't a big deal, and she didn't see the point in getting upset. Once all of this happened, I decided I needed to distance myself from her and focus on my new family. My husband agreed with doing this as well. Fast forward to about a week and a half ago. My husband and son had been sick for over a week. I was out doing errands and getting groceries. Mother-in-law asked me multiple times if I wanted anything from Sam's Club. I would constantly tell her, no, but thank you. She was doing the same to my husband, and he would also respond, no, we're good, thanks. I returned home and my son was screaming. He hadn't slept all day. We decided to try to nap. My husband finally falls asleep, and I finally get my son to fall asleep. About 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. My dog goes flying and barking her head off, waking up my son. I answer the door and say, why are you here? She says I wanted to bring you a rotisserie chicken, a trash can, and laundry detergent. I told her we already said we didn't want anything, and to not show up at our house unannounced, and that next time she tries to give us random crap, I will immediately return it to her. We don't want anything from her. She got angry and said she will never come over or speak to us again, and slammed the door. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is wrong of me, but the quickest cure for always popping by unannounced guests is to stop answering the door like a knee-jerk response to the bell. I never answer the bell when I'm not expecting anyone, and I almost never casually grab the phone when it rings either, unless I'm at work. I needed a clean circle of get off my dang nerves, so I created one. And yes, I will tell anyone later, sorry I missed you. What did you need? Retrain her just as you would a dog, okay? Give her some homeopathic aversion therapy by not engaging in the endless cycling of your frustration and dramatizing that she's being victimized. Not the jerk, but I wonder if it's worth experimenting with a different approach. You keep telling mother-in-law, please don't do this, and then she keeps doing that very thing. Why? Because she thinks she's being helpful? All she wants to do is help you, so give her stuff to do that scratches that itch, and then live your life in peace. Do you need stuff from Sam's Club? No. But what we really need is someone to take our dog for a few hours so we can nap uninterrupted. Or, yes, we could really use some orange juice, but our house is a mess and everyone is sleeping. Can you leave it at the door and we'll get it from you tomorrow? My girlfriend pulled an insane prank on me and I'm beyond furious. This happened yesterday. I was expecting my new Mac Pro, which I saved a lot for in the past few months, to arrive. It was nearly $6,000. I was given a delivery window, and of course it was delivered during the window, at a time that I was in the bathroom and I didn't notice. My girlfriend collected the package and hid it, so I was left wondering where the package was. When the delivery window passed, I asked the delivery company and they just said the window is a guideline and asked me to call back in an hour, which I did. And after tens of minutes of being on the phone, they finally told me that they have called the driver and it's already been delivered. I told them that it's not delivered and the driver is either mistaken or lying, which basically started an argument for maybe 5 minutes where I asked to talk to a supervisor. To make it short, I was on the phone with them for 4 hours, telling them that they have either delivered to the wrong address or that their driver is trying to steal a package. During this time, my girlfriend looked worried and she even started searching online for misdelivered parcels and even posted on Facebook that this had happened. At the end of the day, I was told by the company that they will give me a call the next day to update. I also called Apple and made them look into the situation, and they said that they will investigate. So at almost 7 p.m., after being upset for more than 6 hours, she brought the package and said that it was all a prank. I was beyond angry, and before I could say anything else, she just said goodbye and left. I'm still angry. I love her, and she's always been very nice, but this whole thing was just messed up. She handed you the package and just said goodbye and left? It doesn't even seem like she got anything positive out of this, including enjoyment, so I can't understand why she would choose to do this. I personally despise pranks, so seeing you go through that willingly is pretty messed up. I'm sorry this happened to you. OP. She started laughing, but when she saw how angry I was, I guess she just decided to call it a day, maybe to avoid an argument. I wonder if she even thought about the delivery person possibly losing their job because of this. Being suspected of stealing a $6,000 item, which is a felony, thereby possibly initiating a police investigation. Yeah, I'd have a serious talk with her about actions and consequences. OP. I already have. I've never been this embarrassed in my life. Update. So she apologized to me and explained why she did it. Apparently, she and her sister had a bet to pull the most insane prank on their boyfriends. Her sister put salt in her boyfriend's beer, and my girlfriend did what she did, so I guess we know who won. She realized how stupid this was. I also called the delivery company and apologized for everything. Told them that my friends had pranked me without any consideration. They were not happy about it, and they told me that they had suspended the driver until the issue was resolved. So I guess it cost the poor driver a day's pay. I'm gonna let it pass. It's all over now. Are you kidding me? Your girlfriend should have called the delivery company and apologized, and she should pay the driver his day's pay. OP. I honestly called and apologized the next morning out of concern for the driver. She offered to do it, but I had done it already. An innocent delivery driver who had done nothing wrong is suffering from all this, and you're gonna let it pass? OP. What else can I do? The delivery company didn't accept a reimbursement offer. Maybe tell her to find the exact driver and apologize for her rudeness, for the trouble she put you and the other guy through. Don't they leave who left the package? OP. I tried getting details of the driver. The company didn't do it and wanted to, quote, be done with us. That driver is sitting at home with his wife and kids trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills for the next month if he gets fired, worrying about being evicted, wondering how they're going to tell their daughter they can't afford ballet this month because daddy might get fired for something he didn't do. I wonder how much he laughed at her prank. Her behavior shows a level of selfishness and inability to think about the consequences of her actions that makes me worry about her as a long-term partner. OP. She said she had not at all considered the consequences for the driver. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done it. She's 28 years old and she couldn't think forward enough to not hurt people? I would seriously reevaluate your relationship and keep an eye on things. If she can't develop more empathy and thoughtfulness for others, if she can't, it'll bite you in the backside again, probably at the worst possible time. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she's entitled and has it too easy? I, 48 male, and my wife, Ann, 47 female, live by ourselves. Our kids have both moved out. I'm the breadwinner and Ann the stay-at-home mom. Now she's the housewife after our youngest moved out last year. What's changed is that she says she's owed for raising our kids and taking care of the household. She wants more personal time, less work around the house, and so I've basically taken over almost all of the housework, cooking 3 meals, cleaning the house. I'm still working a full-time job, and I never slacked on chores that I did, such as gardening, hard lifting, etc., and I was never an absent father. I bore with it for the past year, But she's gotten much worse, outright berating me in front of the kids when they visit that I'm only good for my strength and I don't think about the household at all, while she's doing less of the household work. It's gotten to the point that I just want to relax in the car for a good solid minute because I only know there's a long list of things to do. Last night, she went out with her friends while I slept early for work. This morning, I looked for the car keys for over 30 minutes, which were not in the drawer we always put them in. I woke her up to ask where she put them, and she just grumbled at me to find them myself before going back to sleep. I ended up finding it in her handbag and got to work late. I got home today to her screaming at me for invading her privacy by going through her handbag. I tried to tell her that she told me to go find them myself, but she kept cutting me off, saying I should have known better than to dig through her personal belongings, that she has rights and I should respect them and to wait for her to wake up before getting her to find the keys herself. It was when she said that she didn't care if I was late to work that I lost it. Her exact line was, "It's not like we're needing that stupid money anymore." I yelled back at her that she was entitled and selfish, and that the only reason she's able to enjoy her current time is because of my stupid money, that she's been having it far too easy the past year, and if she wanted to see what she's owed, she can go back to either working or doing all the chores she's dumped on me. Anne was shell-shocked that I yelled back at her. The rest of the night was quiet, and she locked herself in our bedroom and hasn't come out. I've called our kids and told them what happened. My daughter agrees with me, but my son says that I may have been too harsh to call her entitled and implied that I undermined her efforts all those years as a stay-at-home mom. They're going to take turns calling Anne, but I now wonder if I may have been overboard with yelling at her about taking it too easy. Daughter has suggested couples therapy and said she's going to suggest it to Anne as well. I'm more than willing to do so, as today's encounter made me reflect that I'm getting extremely tired and weary of this life. Not the jerk. Get your affairs in order. If you still love this woman, get counseling. Regardless, start separating money now. A divorce is going to cut you in half. Getting living expenses if she empties your bank account and bails? Pretty darn hard. Get copies of all pertinent documents. Mortgage, passport, savings, car title, insurance. Take control of all of your accounts, or at the bare minimum, instruct them that all changes must take both of your presence, not signature. She wouldn't do that. Yes, she would. We have problems, but case A, case B, case C, etc. Expect the best and prepare for the worst. Not sure, but I want to break up with my partner over the content of his will. So I finally got the courage to discuss this issue, but I'm still very embarrassed because I know that talking about and discussing money is frowned upon, and I agree that I am not entitled to anything I didn't work for. I live by this, and I have since I was 16, been my provider even though I come from a stable and well-off family with loving and supportive parents. But being independent has always been priceless to me. I started my company when I was 26, I'm 42 now, and it thrived until lockdown, when it almost went into bankruptcy, but now it makes a good living, but nothing as it did before. For me, besides having to let go great employees and the fear of losing my pride and joy, my company, the monetary side never bothered me because I have made good savings and I always adjust well to situations living within my limits. Why this long intro? Just to paint a picture of why my partner's betrayal is more about trust and love for me than the monetary aspect. I haven't succeeded in making people around me understand this, however, because when I told my family that I want to break up with him over his will, they called me the jerk. I'm 42 female, he's 53 male. We've been together since 2009, living together since 2011. We're compatible in everything, and the love I have for him is never wavered. We both make a good living, and we have since 2015 bought our beautiful penthouse that we love very much. Around the same time, we started to think about the unpleasant things like passing away, etc. And since we are each other's family, we wrote wills that we inherited each other because we thought that the one leaving earlier could be at peace, knowing the other would not have to worry about moving or lowering their standards. At the time, I made 2 to 3 times more than him. He was very supportive and loving during lockdown, and he made me feel like I could just sit it out without worrying about contributing to our living just to keep the company afloat. For a year, I didn't take salary and I used from my savings, but he made the bigger contribution to the household. After lockdown, now, both with the changes in my economy and advancement in his career, he makes double what I make. We discussed our living situation and if we needed to downsize, but we did the math, and honestly, we don't even spend half of what we make, so it's all good. During my Christmas deep cleaning at the apartment, I stumbled upon his new will, made in 2022, where he only leaves me 10% and 10% to his mother, something we already agreed on. The rest goes to his sister and her family. I was shocked because we never talked about this and he never told me. He's still my sole heir besides the 10% we were leaving to our mothers. His sister and her husband fell on hard times due to her getting fired from her high-paying job due to gross misconduct and her husband's job being lost due to lockdown. And it turned out that they had accumulated lots of debt throughout the years. But by no means are they poor. They just don't have the means they had before. In fact, they're still way more well off than any of my siblings. But never has it occurred to me or my family that they would inherit me the same way I didn't expect to inherit them. I feel nauseous. I want to leave him. I feel betrayed. The thought makes me so hurt. Not only how unfair it is, but how he hid it from me. I love him, and I could just ignore this and change my will in secret too to make my much more deserving siblings my heirs and leave him crumbs. But I don't know. My heart is broken. What do you think? He secretly took away the security he promised you and vice versa. If you knew, then you could plan for a better future. He took a coward's way out, and it is betrayal. I would feel sick and devastated too. I don't think this is about money. This is about him going behind your back and changing things without your knowledge. So let's get that out of the way. Partner betrayal is very painful because it makes you question the validity of the entire relationship itself. You start asking yourself, what else did he hide? Can I believe in his words and actions moving forward? That feeling of you can depend on your person begins to erode. Once that trust is broken, it's very hard to repair. My sister showed up at my front door after driving across the country to see me. I turned her away. I, 28 female, have always been incredibly close with my sister who's 30. We'll call her Sam. Since we've been kids, we always hung out together, shared friend groups, hobbies, interests, and genuinely liked being around each other. However, she recently got a new girlfriend who's 29, Trisha, and our dynamic has really changed. I don't like Trisha at all. She's not really rude or unpleasant, but I just don't vibe with her, and I think she's annoying. I've expressed this to Sam, which resulted in one of our biggest arguments to date. I understand that my opinion doesn't really matter in their relationship, but I just don't enjoy being around Trisha, so Sam and I have seen each other less and less and have been getting into more and more arguments. I recently moved halfway across the country for my job, and Sam asked if she could come and visit. I excitedly said yes, as I wanted to show her all the new hiking spots by me, and I genuinely wanted to have sister time again. However, she then asked if Trisha could come along as well. I don't really have the space or means of hosting at my new place, and despite Sam saying she would happily sleep on the floor or the couch, I just really didn't want to be on while she was around. I told my sister I really just wanted it to be her and I hanging out and exploring this side of the country, and thus began another argument. Eventually I told her, either come alone or don't come at all, which I half assumed would put an end to the visitation plans, but later she agreed she would come alone. Fast forward to when she was planning on visiting. I'm getting extra excited and having a whole plan for the week mapped out. Sam texts me when she leaves her place, and since I know it's a 15-hour drive, yes, she chose to take it straight through, she would be arriving at my place around 10 p.m. 10 p.m. rolls around and she knocks at my door, and I open it to both Sam and Trisha. I didn't even know what to say or do. I was shocked. Both of them looked happy to see me, but I just couldn't understand what happened. Eventually, the anger and embarrassment caught up with me, and I refused to let them in. Things got a little heated and frustrating, and it resulted in me telling them angrily to find a motel somewhere or drive home. They both chose to get a motel after quite a bit of fighting and yelling, which is where they are right now. My family is furious with me for making them look for a hotel so late at night, even though it's a pretty highly populated area with many options around. I'm quite embarrassed and worked up over this whole thing, but I don't think I made the wrong move, considering I set my boundaries pretty clearly. I feel like I might have overreacted, as I genuinely don't think Sam or Trisha will ever speak to me again. I just can't believe my entire relationship with my sister has come to such a screeching halt over a girlfriend she's had for just over a year. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk for setting boundaries and sticking to them. Your sister tried to pull a fast one on you and is now paying the price of a hotel room for it. Ultimately, however, you will need to decide if losing your sister is worth it. This relationship may or may not last, but the hurt you just caused will be something she remembers for a long time. If you want her in your life, you need to have a one-on-one with her and let her know how you felt when she lied about coming alone, and also springing someone she knows you're not fond of on you and into your personal space. I feel like I'm gonna get downvoted by the "but your boundaries" crowd, but here we go. Everyone sucks here. Sam absolutely should not have surprised you by showing up at your door with Trish. She set up a situation ripe for drama and embarrassment for both you and Trish. She's a jerk. That said, I really think refusing a family member entry to your home and making them get a hotel in the middle of the night should be reserved for relationships with a lot of history and drama. In other words, something more than being a bit annoying. I also think it's a bit selfish of you to demand your sister travel across the country to see you, but not be allowed to bring her girlfriend. You're essentially saying, use your limited time and money and pay time off only for me, when it's reasonable and even expected that these things would also be shared with the person's significant other. Bottom line, you admit that Trish is not really rude or unpleasant, and yet you were exactly that to Trish and Sam. Is the issue really that you just don't vibe with her girlfriend? Because that seems like a crazy thing to lose your sister over. What if they get married or they stay together forever without marriage? At one point, do you say, "Oh well, we'll never be sisters again because I don't like the vibes"? You're allowed to have boundaries, but your reasoning for not liking her is shaky. Your sister should have kept the trip the way y'all planned it, but you need to go ahead and let her know you've decided that if she dates people and wants to be in your life, then she has to make sure you give final approval on future partners, and once she breaks up with her girlfriend, you'll be ready for her apology and the keys to her life. Am I the jerk for throwing out my husband and my son a few days before Christmas? My husband, who's 41, and I, 38 female, have 2 kids. Our daughter, Rachel, who's 15, and our son, Tim, who's 13. Since forever, I've been begging my husband to do more around the house, but he continues to be a lazy man-child. He does the bare minimum when I force him to, and that's it. And our son is learning from him. He's not doing his chores, not cleaning up his messes, and expecting his sister to cater to him. Hubby is enabling him and secretly overrules me when I punish Tim. We had more than one argument because of their laziness. Yesterday I was shopping with Rachel, and we met a friend from work and her boyfriend. So I called my husband and asked him and Tim to clean the house ASAP because I'll bring home guests. When we arrived home nearly 2 hours later, the house was a mess. I never felt so embarrassed in my life. My friend smiled and downplayed it as normal, but I was able to see the look she exchanged with her boyfriend. We chatted for 20 minutes after I cleaned the living room a bit, and they left. I finally had enough. I told hubby and Tim to get out of my house and don't come back until they learn to respect me and be helpful around the house. We had a bad argument, and in the end, they gave up and left. My son has called me since from the motel where he and hubby are staying and begged me to let him back in. I told him he can ask me in 2024 and I might consider it. They're banned for Christmas. Family will gather in my house this year, and for New Year's Eve. Tim will then return. Hubby, I'm not sure yet. My mom and sister are against this. They think I'm way too harsh, especially to Tim. But I think he needs a serious wake-up call, and this is it. And I don't give a hoot about hubby at this point. Am I the jerk? Edit. The text says clearly Tim will return home. This is just a wake-up call for him. Maybe he can even return for Christmas if he promises to do his chores from now on. Quick update. My son called me again. I explained the situation and what I expect from him. He agreed to sign a paper where all his chores will be listed. He also agreed to help his sister with all of her chores until New Year's Eve. I will pick him up tomorrow. Didn't talk with my husband. Update 2. I picked my son up from the hotel in the early morning. He couldn't wait. I apologized for throwing him out, but explained my reasoning to him. He signed the paper and promised to do better from now on. I'm happy to have him back. Hubby tried to talk to me when I picked Tim up, but I didn't even listen. As for him, he can stay away for a while, and I will have the time to think about our relationship. Just curious, how did you get them to actually leave? Asking for a friend. This is a perfectly reasonable question. I had an ex-boyfriend living in my house. I told him I wanted him to leave, and he just didn't. I had to write up a formal eviction and take it to court. Merry Christmas. Laughing out loud at the lazy slob who wrote, and then deleted. Honestly, if it had been me, no matter how justified you felt or actually were, your next conversation with me would be to tell you to sign the papers. Oh no. Imagine being a lazy deadweight slob and thinking that saying you'll get a divorce is a threat. Throw out the husband and keep the son. There's still a chance you can influence him to be a better human. If left with your husband, that chance is gone. You're a hero to your daughter for sure. Way to take a stand. You're the jerk. Being lazy and not doing chores and being a crappy dad is not okay, but kicking out your 13-year-old son. Also, I hate last-minute events. You can't make a dinner date or friends come over and expect everyone to shift their time. You should plan accordingly. You're the jerk. You kicked your 13-year-old kid out of your house and banned him from Christmas. You're a monster. What kind of mother does that? I completely understand kicking your husband out or you yourself getting separation, but to punish your 13-year-old for that is beyond messed up. You're teaching your daughter that it's acceptable to treat your son like this, even though it's your fault he's acting up. Be a better mother. I can't believe you get the privilege of motherhood and so many wonderful women never get to be moms. Laughing out loud. Imagine if a man had wrote this story. I decided to have friends over, so texted my wife telling her and our daughter to get the house spotless before I got home. They failed to do that, so I kicked my wife and daughter out and won't let them attend Christmas. Reddit hypocrisy as usual. Am I the jerk for telling my brother if he's going to be late, don't show up? I, 31 female, and my husband, 29 male, got married a week ago. Yay! I spent 2 years planning my wedding and everything was great except for my brother, who's 36 male, his tardiness with every event that he came to. For context, my brother and I don't get along. We never have. I only invited him for my parents. Also, I was adopted, so he's not biologically related to me. He's always late, and in the past we've had to tell him an event was 2 hours earlier than it really was, so that he'd be on time. He was late to my high school and college graduations, and he missed me walk both times. When I was sending invitations, I put in an extra note in his that read as follows: I know Mom, Dad, and I would love for you to attend, but if you're going to be late, don't bother showing up. Your girlfriend and her daughter are welcome to attend with or without you. He called me for the first time in years and lost it on me. I held my ground and said I would still appreciate him coming to the wedding, but I won't allow him to interrupt the ceremony by being late. He then called my parents and yelled at them as well. They said it was my wedding and they stood by my decision. He came to the wedding, but he walked in as I was walking down the aisle and walked past me to his seat. I was horrified and embarrassed and mad. I didn't know exactly what I was feeling in the moment, but it was a mixture of things. After the ceremony, my dad and my biological father, who I'd become close with over the years since I met him, both spoke to my brother about how that was inappropriate and rude. My brother didn't care and asked where the bar was. He was forced to leave. Am I the jerk? Why do you still allow him in your life when he's clearly not interested? There's late, and then there's walking down the aisle at a wedding. OP. It's one of the many reasons we don't get along. He blames me for ruining his life when our parents chose to adopt me. My dad is an attorney and heard about my situation when I was 6 and adopted me. My brother says that I ruined his life. Do your parents know this? OP. No, I never told them. I don't want to feel like they have to choose between their kids. My brother likes to remind me that he's their son and I'm not their daughter. Just some kid that they took pity on, but I never saw it that way. His loss. OP. Thank you. He treats me like this, then asks to use my equipment. I own a cattle ranch, when his isn't working. I've never loaned it out because I don't trust it to come back working. He wants to be my brother, but when he wants to use my shooting range or my four-wheeler, I've never let him onto the ranch. He's never even seen my house. My daughter's afraid of him, honestly. Update. As a lot of people in the comments on this original post said, I told my parents everything. How my brother has told me that I ruined his ideal life. How my parents pitied me, and that's the only reason they adopted me. How I'll never be a member of the family, etc. I also told them that if I host any events at my home and ranch, I will be hosting Christmas this year since I have the space for the whole family, biological and adopted. My brother will not be invited. I do not want him in my life anymore. The event at my wedding was the final straw. I'll be civil if we see each other at family functions that I am not hosting, but I will not be in contact with him anymore unless there's an emergency with our parents. My parents support and understand my position. I told them that this is not me making them choose between us, and this is just me drawing a line in the sand and setting a boundary. I love my parents. They saved me from a horrible situation and gave me the best life I could have hoped for. If not for them, I wouldn't have my beautiful daughter, wouldn't have met my husband, or have my amazing ranch. My ranch hands, Lloyd in particular, said that if my brother ever attempted to come onto the ranch without my knowledge, they would boot him fast. Of course, his wife and daughter are welcome anytime. I want to thank everyone for the support and kind comments and helping me see that he does not treat me like family and I should stop trying to extend the olive branch since he keeps burning it. Am I the jerk for not putting a stop to my stepdaughter correcting the food the host made? I, 32 female, have been dating a widower with a daughter, Nara, who's 12, for a year. We currently moved to a new city because of my boyfriend's job promotion. I freelance, and we're in the middle of settling down. Nara and I get along very well. Nara plays tennis. Since the move, she's been in the school team and competed a bit. The parents of her teammates often organize some kind of get-together, and her father and I tried our best to have her attend most of them. I would say Nara got along well with all of her teammates, and I thought the parents were friendly. Last week, the team captain's parents hosted a potluck party at their place. Nara and I brought over some brownies. There really were a lot of different kinds of food. The team captain's father did most of the greeting, telling us his wife was preparing something special for us all. Once everyone was at the party, the wife came out of the kitchen with a special dish, a recipe of a specific country. Now, Nara looks white, but her late mother actually came from that very country. The wife host began to serve everyone and share her recipe and ingredients, and how it was not that difficult to make once you substitute the local ingredients, and feel free to ask her for tips. At this point, Nara spoke up, saying that the authentic recipe included such and such, and how their particular scent and taste added to the whole experience of eating the dish. She said if so many substitutes were used, they might as well call the dish a different name. The wife host looked a little unsettled and told Nara that she and her husband traveled a lot in their youth, and she had the dish many times and knew what it was supposed to taste like, and the substituted ingredients worked just fine. Nara then said her mom was from the dish's country of origin, and she understood that some ingredients were hard to come by, but substituting so much turned the dish into something else altogether. During all this, I mostly kept silent. Nara was not being rude, just matter of fact, and as this was a matter of her heritage, I thought she could speak up. The host wife spluttered a bit before saying everyone should just go ahead and enjoy her dish, no matter the name. Everyone tried it, though nobody asked for seconds. I personally thought it was a little bland, and there were a lot of leftovers. Nara's team captain later called her, thanking her for putting her annoying stepmom in her place. When my boyfriend came back from his business trip and learned of this, however, he thought I should have reprimanded Nara for being rude to the host. He also had a talk with Nara, and she seemed to be sulking a bit, though she was not grounded or anything. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Nara was extremely rude. This woman opened up her home and spent time and money to prepare this meal. Nara trashed it before she even ate it. Maybe you and Nara don't realize this, but there are different ways to prepare a cultural dish. Not everyone in a particular culture prepares their food the exact same way. Maybe the dish tastes similarly to the way it was prepared when the hostess ate it during her travels. Your stepdaughter needs to learn graciousness and respect. If I pulled something like this when I was her age, my mom would make me write an apology letter to the mom. Then she would volunteer our family to host the next team get-together and make me do all of the cooking by myself, so I would learn to have respect for people who invite me into their home and prepare a meal for me. The team captain is also an ungrateful brat. If her stepmom is so annoying, she needs to learn to handle the hosting duties for these gatherings herself. You're the jerk. Not a huge jerk, but still. Being a gracious guest is a skill that everyone should learn. Was your stepdaughter technically right? Probably. But she made the host uncomfortable unnecessarily. I get that it might be a pain point for her, given her mother has passed on, but she was actually being rude. The host wanted to share something with her guests that she obviously was proud of, and your stepdaughter called her out in front of everyone. My boyfriend gives me horrible gifts, and I'm fed up. We've been together since 2019. Our first Christmas together, I got him an Alexa, with the accessories to make his apartments a smart home. He moved into an apartment around his birthday, so I got him a microwave, toaster, silverware, etc. His most recent birthday, I got him an at-home golf set because he recently became obsessed with golf. It cost more than I expected, but I was happy to give it to him. Our first Christmas together, he gave me a video game and the money he owed me. For my birthday, he got me another video game. My birthday and Christmas are coming up, the same day. I bought him a signed Steelers football because that's his favorite NFL team. He just told me the gift he got me, and this might be dramatic, but I had to stop myself from crying. He went on a solo vacation earlier this year, and my birthday present is that he printed the pictures from his vacation and put it in a photo book. This is his gift to everyone, his mom, sisters, brothers, friends, and me. He mentioned it before, and I politely told him I did not want that gift. I actually told him I would hate it, and he laughed it off. I've been telling him since we started dating that I like jewelry, and I would love that as a gift. He tells me he hates going into jewelry stores, and more recently, a couple days ago, said, "You already have so much jewelry. Why would I buy you more?" At this point, it feels disrespectful. After finding out my gift today, I told him to just not get me anything. It literally feels like he doesn't care about me or my feelings. He calls me materialistic because I like to buy myself things, and I feel like if I tell him how I truly feel, he'll just call me materialistic more. And maybe I am materialistic. Maybe this is a sweet and thoughtful gift, and I ruined it for him. My jaw dropped at the multiple photo books of his vacation. Is this something that people do? Why would I want a coffee table book of someone else's vacation pictures? If someone in my family got us all this gift, they would never live it down. The issue isn't the gifts. The issue is that he makes no effort to do something you would like. He sounds like he's in his own head. This isn't going to change, so it's up to you whether or not you want to be with him long term. Stop buying him sweet and thoughtful gifts. Give him a framed picture of himself. You need to consider if you really want to remain in this relationship. It feels like he doesn't care about you or your feelings because that's what his actions are showing you. I'm sorry. I wish I'd walked away from men like him in the past, and I hope you do too. My boyfriend now gets so excited about buying me gifts on Christmas that he always overdoes it. There's partners out there that will match your efforts if you only make the space for them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for making my nephew apologize immediately in front of his friends? I, 33 male, am staying at my grandparents' house for the holidays. My grandparents passed away, and the house was maintained by their kids, making it a communal space for all family members to use. The rooms are usually saved for those of us who visit from out of town, like me. I have a cousin, Frank, who's 34, who also visits but stays elsewhere. We were close growing up. Frank was married to his high school sweetheart, Kim, for around 10 years, and they had a 6-year-old daughter. Kim passed in an accident just a little over a year ago. Frank was more than devastated. What set Frank apart from most guys is I know how deeply he loved his wife. He was an exceptionally happily married man. His goodbye phrase to me in private or in public was, "See you later, miserable single loser." He was making fun of how I never had a long-time girlfriend. I always took it in good fun. It was nice to see a guy so devoted, given that my parents and more than half of my aunts and uncles are divorced. A few days after I stayed at my grandparents', my nephew Tom, who's 17, showed up with a few friends wanting to watch a movie. Tom lives with his sister nearby. I ordered the boys some pizza and I joined them. A bit later, Frank dropped by, wanting to catch up with me. We stayed in the same room and talked. Frank seemed to be doing much better since the last time I saw him a month after Kim's funeral. Once the movie was over, Tom asked if they could hang out in the room for a while, and I said yes. Frank, however, excused himself, saying he needed to go pick up his daughter. We hugged goodbye, and Frank was about to leave when Tom said, "What? None of that miserable single loser stuff? Welcome to the club. Guess now you're a miserable single loser too." I could see the colors drain from Frank's face, and he looked like he was going to pass out. I immediately turned to Tom and told him to apologize, and now. Tom said, why should he apologize? And I only raised my voice with, "Now." Tom glared at me, but finally looked away and softly said sorry to Frank. Frank just left. Tom's friends mumbled about how they had to go and quickly cleaned up and left. Tom left with them. Later that night, Tom's father called me from across the country, reprimanding me that I should not shame Tom in front of his friends like that. He said he understood what Tom said was insensitive, but being scolded like a kid in front of his friends was not how I should handle this. I could wait and have Tom apologize later. Am I the jerk? No. What you did was absolutely the right thing. Tom needed to be told immediately, and in no uncertain terms, that what he said was absolutely and completely awful, and then he needed to apologize immediately. Tom literally could have walked up to Frank and sucker punched him, and it would have hurt Frank less. Not the jerk. If you haven't already, spend some time talking to Tom's dad and make sure he knows what really happened. Tom may have described what happened in a way that made him less of a bad guy. Karen closes down my street so her kids and dogs can play in the road. I live on the end of a cul-de-sac in a newer built neighborhood. I've been here for over 5 years now. I'm the only person in the cul-de-sac that doesn't have kids, as I'm a single female. The mamas usually close off the cul-de-sac every morning, sometimes during the day too when it's nice out, and they allow their kids and dogs to play all over the street and my yard, driveway, and porch. There are 8 kids in total, ranging from ages 1 to 6. The problem is that this is usually when I'm coming home from work after a long day. The mamas expect me to park on the street and walk to my home and then come back later when they're done and get my car in the garage. And I'm not doing this. There's typically toys and various types of tricycles laying all over the road. The parents and kids are also on the road and nobody will move from my car as I maneuver around all the obstacles. I've installed security cameras and planted barriers around my property to discourage the trespassers. However, they just throw my mulch, ride bikes through my flower beds. Their dogs have urinated so frequently on my plants that they are now deceased, and they defecate in my yard and leave it. The kids have messed up my cars and broken many things, electrical items. Their 1-year-old is frequently found on my porch, and I mean multiple times a day. It's only my yard this happens to. However, yesterday was the last straw. I was coming home and the road was closed as usual for their makeshift mommy and me time. I drove around the obstacles and pulled up in my driveway. 2 kids, maybe about 5 or 6, ran up in my car between me and the garage door, and they held out their hands so I couldn't pull up. They were blocking my path. Yes, they were in my driveway about a foot from my garage door. The mamas see it happen and do nothing. Next thing I know, a mama is running over, screaming at me that I'm driving too fast up my driveway. She was referencing how the kids play in the yard in the driveway, and I'm putting them in danger and banging her fists on my door. I then woke up this morning to find she had made a large sign that said, "No speeding, kids at play," and put it in my yard facing my front door. I did make a call to the police, but they said there's really nothing they can do for neighbor disputes, even though they're trespassing and closing roads. Is this right? How else can I handle this? What would you do? Am I truly in the wrong here? I've spoken to them before, and they've just suggested that I move if I can't be in the village that helps raise the kids. Should I report this? The neighbors all agree that I'm the problem here, and they're ganging up on me, as they feel I should park and wait and allow the kids to play on my property. I even have security footage of a parent instructing their kid to steal from my property to teach me a lesson because I planted barriers. Call the non-emergency number and ask about road closure rules. This is a major safety issue because emergency vehicles will be impeded by the road closure and all of their stuff on the roads. Also, report all property damage and trespassing. They already can't stand you, so no need to worry about rocking the boat. Tip it over and drench them. Drive up with the most annoying gangsta rap music you can blaring from your car. Give the moms a concert until they move their crap. Teach their kids some new vocabulary words. This is why I live in the country. Neighborhoods just suck, and I don't know why people put up with living there. Houses extremely close to each other, high crime rates, no views of nature, loud, obnoxious neighbors playing dumb music, extreme bass rattling your walls when you're trying to sleep, kids screaming outside all hours of the day, cars with loud engines and motorcycles, dogs barking nonstop, parties all hours of the night. I'd pick these snakes and coyotes over that mess any day. Most people want to stay in the city so they're closer to their job, but a longer work commute has always seemed worth it to me to save my sanity. Nothing is better than sitting on the back porch in the morning drinking my coffee without another soul in sight as far as the eye can see. This is how we were meant to live, not in boxes stacked next to each other or on top of one another. How I complied my way out of a parking ticket. A few years ago, I parked in a paid parking lot, but forgot to buy a parking ticket. When I came back a few minutes later, I discovered an $80 ticket on my dash. While I was frustrated about my own forgetfulness, the ticket itself was fair. However, I came to discover that the amount they had charged me was not. Before leaving the lot, I noticed a small detail on the terms and conditions sign at the entrance of the lot. It said that a failure to pay for a parking ticket would result in a $70 ticket, not the $80 ticket that I was charged. While I'm no lawyer, I do know that those signs essentially create an implicit contract upon entering the lot. Therefore, the company was technically violating their own contract by charging me extra. I appealed the ticket, stating that I would be happy to pay the agreed upon $70, but it was rejected. I then reached out directly to customer service, explaining the same situation. They rejected my request to pay the valid $70 because their ticket amounts are non-negotiable. Cue the malicious compliance. I realized that by their own words, they are the ones attempting to negotiate the price by charging me an extra $10. So I called up the supervisor of their claims department. She was already aware of this dispute and immediately attempted to shut me down, saying, "The signage is not up for discussion." I reminded her that their company's policy states that ticket amounts are non-negotiable and that given what the terms on the sign stated, they were trying to negotiate a higher price. Once again, she shut me down, stating the signage is not up to discussion. The rest of the conversation went something like this. Me: "So, where can I escalate this from here?" Her: "There is no more escalation. Next stage is court." Me: "Seems silly to go to court over $10, don't you think?" Her: "Yeah, it does." Me: "Okay, well, I'll begin the small claims court process over the non-negotiable price issue then." Her: "Okay." I was having fun at this point, and I was fully ready to start taking legal steps over this $10 on a matter of principle, and knowing that if I did, the company would immediately cave. Before doing that, however, I sent one final email to the vice president of the company. I explained the whole dispute, explained the signage, their non-negotiable policy, and how the appeal supervisor told me my next step was to take it to court. I offered them the opportunity to resolve this civilly before going on to that stage. Not even 3 hours later, I got an email back stating that my ticket had been fully cleared as a courtesy. I called their bluff, maliciously complying to the contract and the take it to court attitude, and it worked. As an added bit of pettiness, I replied thanking them and CC'd the appeal supervisor. I then directly addressed her, telling her that this is how easy it could have been resolved if she would have just actually addressed the signage issue. The moral of the story: push back against parking lot companies. They use shady practices and try to scare people into paying unjustly. Often a simple but credible legal threat will make any issue disappear. And as some have pointed out, yes, these parking tickets aren't usually enforceable. That being said, if I ever wanted to use this lot again, which is the only one in the area, then I would have to get it resolved, lest I get towed. Also, I can't recall exactly how the appeals woman brought up court, but I don't think she implied that I should sue. I think it was more of a veiled, "we will sue you" statement, which was of course a bluff. Regardless, as many pointed out, her mentioning court at all was a bad idea on their part. Karen demands a new debit card, gets what she deserves. I work at Woodforest National Bank. This story happened about a month ago. One of our usual entitled Karen customers comes into the bank demanding that we print her a new debit card because she lost her old one. We issue debit cards same day so long as they pay a debit card fee, $10 for a reprint and $15 for a new card, waived for certain accounts. A reprint was a simple task, so I print her card and send her on her way. She then walks back into the bank because the last two numbers were slightly rubbed off. This is due to how the machine prints the cards, and it's pretty common. Karen: "I want you to print this card again." Me: "Is it not working?" Karen: "Look at the last two numbers. Other banks don't give me cards with rubbed off numbers." Me: "I'm sorry, ma'am, but sometimes that happens with the machine. It rubs off part of the numbers when activating the chip." "I don't care. It looks terrible. Do it again." Me: "Ma'am, I don't think this is a good idea. We really don't have control over the machine." She starts raising her voice. "I don't care what you have to do. Just print my card again so it looks nice." She takes a pair of scissors and cuts the card up into tiny pieces right in front of me. "Print the card now, or do I have to close my account and contact the market manager?" The market manager isn't someone you would know unless you've had a conversation with him before. It's obvious she's trying to name drop him to get me to shut up and comply. Cue malicious compliance. I turn over to my manager and he gives me a nod. I then put on a devious smile and say, "Absolutely, ma'am. But to ensure this won't happen again, we will need to change the numbers, so I'm going to need you to sign some things." "See? Was that so hard?" We then spend the next 10 minutes printing out new cards until we get one that doesn't have the numbers slightly rubbed off. Each time the card isn't to her liking, she cuts it up and says do it again. I just smile and say, "Sorry about that. Let's try again." Each time, until about 8 cards later, she finally gets a card number that isn't rubbed off. "Finally, this card looks good. Thanks." She just leaves with a smug grin, thinking that she won, and leaving us with her massive pile of cut-up debit cards. What we forgot to remind her is that having a completely new card generated outside of fraud or expiration costs $15 to be deducted from your account. This is made clear at account opening, and since she signed off on having all these new cards printed, there was nothing she could say about it. Normally, I try and help people avoid bank fees, but in this case, forget this, Karen. A couple of days later, she comes storming into the bank looking upset. What did you do to my account? Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. What seems to be the problem? There's a bunch of debit card fees on my account. What did you do? Me. Oh, every time you had me print a new debit card for you the other day, a $15 fee was charged to your account. The first one, where you had me reprint the card number, was only $10. You need to reverse these fees right now, before I call the market manager and get you fired. At this point, my manager steps in. Manager. Hello, ma'am. What's the issue? Your employee tricked me into paying over $100 worth of fees because he kept messing up my debit card. Manager. Ma'am, could you please not yell? Also, I was there. You demanded we print you a new debit card because you didn't like the numbers being rubbed off. We have your signature on these forms stating that you wanted these cards to be printed. I will not be reversing these fees for you. Karen. Then I want you to close my account. Manager. Okay, but first, you need to pay off your negative account balance as well as your line of credit. Just give me the market manager's number. This is insane. Me. Sorry, ma'am, but we aren't at liberty to just give you his number like that. Here's the number to customer service if you'd like it. This is true, as he's instructed us to not give his number out to customers who ask for it. The only people who need his number already have it. She takes the number and screams, I'll have all of your jobs for this, kicks over the chair and storms out. We get a call from customer care later about the incident where we explain everything and scan over all of the signed debit card applications. Also, she had us print 8 brand new cards and the one reprint. That cost her about $130 in fees because she demanded a new debit card. The best part is, my manager likely would have just waived the original $10 fee had she just been nice and asked. Am I the jerk for kicking my maid of honor out of my wedding with 5 days' notice? I'm 23, female. I'm getting married in a couple of days. Most of this happened in the last 2 weeks. My maid of honor, who's 26, Mara, was in charge of planning my bachelorette party, which I wanted to be a surprise. We live in a city, but none of us live downtown, so I was hoping for a hotel room downtown and having a fun night out with friends, maybe a brunch. Most of the bridal party lives locally, but 2 girls flew in for it. When Mara picked me up 2 weeks ago on Friday, I was excited to see where we were going and what we were doing. We ended up going to Mara's 1-bedroom townhome and spent the whole weekend there. There are 8 of us, so it was cramped, and we kept running into issues with only 1 bathroom. On Friday night, we had games and ordered pizza. Saturday, we had a mimosa bar, went shopping, ordered food, and watched a movie, before parting ways on Sunday. It wasn't the bachelorette party of my dreams, or a particularly fun weekend, but it was okay and I appreciated it. Last weekend, my fiancé, who's 32, James, had just returned from a work trip. I hadn't caught him up to speed on the party because there wasn't much to report. But when he returned, we were chatting and I told him about the party. He looked confused, but said nothing else that evening. The next day, I got a message from Mara asking to meet up to talk about something. Mara revealed that James had given her a significant amount of money over a year ago with the intention that it was used to be paid for the bachelorette party. It would have been enough to pay for the entire bridal party to do a week-long vacation out of town, including airfare, hotel, food, drinks, and fun. I wasn't expecting this type of an event. A weekend downtown would have been wonderful, and even though the party at her home wasn't what I had hoped for, I was fine with it because I got to be with all of my friends. She, instead, used that money to pay off her credit card debt and hoped that no one would notice. I told her I needed some time to process this, and I went home. After talking with James about it, I decided that the best action would be to remove her from the wedding. I came to this decision because I don't feel I can trust her, and I don't want her to be standing next to me at my wedding. I slept on it overnight and sent her a text saying this on Monday. Since then, I've been getting texts from her mom and boyfriend telling me how awful I am for doing this since I didn't need a big party and Mara was able to financially benefit. My mom is also against removing her from the wedding as she's like a sister to our family, and it would be tragic for me to get married without Mara there. The rest of the bridal party is split, with half saying I shouldn't have kicked her out and the other half agreeing with me. Mara has been crying because she already has her dress. James and I paid for all of the dresses, and she can't wear it anywhere else. At this point, I want the wedding to be over so I can be on my honeymoon and not having to deal with these people. So, was my action too extreme? Am I the jerk? Do these people not realize that she stole your fiancé's money? OP. People realize it, but the prevailing sentiment is, in the case of my bridal party, they don't particularly care, and her mom feels it's okay because it got her out of debt. My mom is just disregarding the entire situation because she cares about Mara. She obviously knew it was wrong because she told you out of guilt. OP. She didn't tell me out of guilt. After he found out what my bachelorette party was, my fiancé told her either she needed to sit down and tell me or he would. Depending on the amount, you could totally press charges. OP. Neither me nor James are interested in dragging this out in court or pressing charges. He wouldn't have given her more money for a bachelorette than he could afford, and this situation is not worth the amount of emotional turmoil that would put everyone involved. We've gotten enough backlash for removing her from the wedding. And the bombshell, the amount stolen, $25,000. Are you guys insanely rich? How do you brush off $25,000? OP. My fiancé makes significantly more money than me and my friends, as well as our families do. Did you tell the others how much she stole? Because that could have helped them too. OP. I haven't disclosed the amount to anyone yet. I'm probably going to send a text out tonight with that information and stating that anyone who feels she was justified is free to not attend on Saturday. Why in the world did your fiancé give her that money a year ago? OP. I think he gave it to her under the assumption that a week-long party would take a while to plan, and that way she could start booking things that may have limited space, as well as dispersing money to coordinate flights. She's a person who's been in my life since I was 18 and typically comes over to our house at least once a week. My fiancé considered her a close and trusted friend as well. It's technically my fiancé's money, even if it was for what was supposed to be a gift for me. He's leaving it up to me if I want to press charges, and has let me know that he'll support whatever route I want to go. I'm still kind of in shock and obviously upset, so pressing charges or taking her to civil court is the last thing on my mind. He does have text messages confirming that she received it and what it was for, and she has sent me things confirming that she used it to pay off debt, and her mom and boyfriend have as well. Maybe I'll change my mind later on, but right now I just want to get married and get away from the drama. Update. To answer the most pressing question, I removed her from the wedding, and I disinvited those who continued to support her after I shared the amount that she stole. My husband and I had a lovely wedding and honeymoon, and when we got back, we got in contact with his lawyer to begin compiling information and preparing to file a civil suit. This is still in the early stages, but as so many did point out, we do have a responsibility to ensure she faces some kind of consequences to prevent this from happening to someone else. While we won't be pressing criminal charges, we'll cooperate with law enforcement should the DA wish to bring charges after information is brought forth in our civil suit. I honestly don't believe my ex-friend has the money to repay us, but we will be donating anything we receive from the trial. $25,000 for a bachelorette weekend? Time to log off of Reddit before I stare at my bank account and wonder what it's like not to sneeze at $25,000. Thinking about it, it's so out of touch of the groom to think it'll be problem-free to hand a normal person or a broke person $25,000 for the party as though it's petty cash. For most, that's a life-changing sum, and being told to spend it all on one chick's party is soul-destroying. Well, what do you think? Should OP have forgiven her friend or not? Please let us know. No way, she's a total thief. Am I the jerk for telling my uncle that I would never be a stepmom after seeing how his daughter treated my aunt? When I, 20, female, was 7 years old, I lost my parents and was sent to live with my aunt, biological, and her husband, uncle, and his daughter, Kylie. Kylie was 10 when I moved in. She lost her mom when she was 5 or 6, and my aunt had been married to my uncle for a little over a year, so it was a really difficult time for her. But I remember thinking Kylie might get what it was like a little. But she was very clear from day one we were not family. One thing that always stuck out to me was how Kylie really resented and hated my aunt. My aunt couldn't ask Kylie to do anything without being yelled at. She couldn't do anything nice for her without getting glared at. She'd accuse her of disrespecting her mom by trying to play mom. She'd accuse her of doing stuff that she had no right to do. She'd tell my aunt to know her place. My aunt always understood Kylie was grieving, and she pushed my uncle to make sure Kylie got enough time with him but was also able to talk to him. They had her in therapy as well. My aunt told me once when I got upset on her behalf that some people, kids or adults, can find it hard to see their living parent move on and have a new relationship after they lose the other parent, and Kylie was struggling. A few months ago, I saw Kylie for the first time in 12 years, and she could not hide her still existing hatred for my aunt. The way she looked at her, I even heard her tell my uncle that my aunt was nothing to her, and all she did was attempt to steal a deceased woman's entire family. It made me realize just how strong that resentment can be. I also know from my uncle's sister that Kylie is still furious my aunt ever tried to ask her to do anything or issued any kind of consequence for her behavior when she was a kid. The experience of living with them always made me say I didn't see myself ever wanting to date and marry someone who has kids. But having seen her hatred for my aunt at 30, knowing she still resents my aunt for even daring to ask her to do something in the home, it made me realize that while it can work and some people have amazing blended families, it's definitely not for me. A few days ago, I came home for Christmas, staying until the 28th. My uncle was talking about my boyfriend and then asked me about this guy at work who asked me out a couple of times and why I never gave him a chance since I thought he was cute, etc. I told him it just wouldn't work, but he kept pushing, and I told him it was because he had kids. He told me that was a strange reason when I want kids, and I said yeah, but after seeing how Kylie treated my aunt, I've decided I would never be a stepmom. My uncle was upset about it and told me I can't swear off men with kids for that reason, and he said divorced and widowed parents deserve to find happiness again. I said they do, and I would never say they shouldn't have that, but I do not want to be that for them. He said it was rude for me to blame Kylie. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He's right. Widows and widowers do deserve happiness and to find someone if they choose. However, it is your life. I wouldn't want to date anyone with kids either. Now, that might change when I'm older. I'm only 24 now. Your opinion is valid regardless of your experience. Having kids and dating is hard. Babysitters, school, parenting, etc. There are a lot more variables than there are now to introduce, and it's complicated. Also, if I was in that position, I wouldn't want to start seriously seeing someone unless my kid really liked them. How the heck do you navigate that? You don't want to introduce them too early and have one party get attached and it doesn't work out. You don't want to introduce them too late and make your kid or partner feel like you're hiding them. And what happens if they don't get along? Stay in the relationship and risk your kid feeling like you aren't on their team anymore? He took what you said personally, when in actuality, it had nothing to do with him. Am I the jerk for not buying my son a car like I did for the rest of his siblings? I, 49 male, have 4 kids, twin boys who are both 27, one girl who's 25, and another son who's 21. This post is about my youngest son, Jack. Since they were kids, I promised my kids 2 things. 1, I'll fully pay for all of their college expenses, housing, tuition, food, etc. And 2, once they graduate college, I'll buy them a car. I kept that promise for all of my kids, except with Jack. And now I want to know if I'm being a jerk for this. I paid for Jack's college expenses, but I'm refusing to buy him a car. Below are some of the reasons why. 1. I co-signed my name on the lease for Jack's room that he rents with a friend, and I send Jack his portion of the rent every month. The friend started taking advantage of my name being on the lease and stopped paying for rent too, knowing I'll cover the amount because I don't want missed payments on my credit score. I asked Jack multiple times to ask his roommate to pay his portion, but the boy did not care to even respond to me, and I ended up paying for 6 months of his friend's rent too until I finally solved the problem by getting my name off the lease. 2. Jack has a very rude and entitled attitude. He speaks to us like we are his low-performing employees. The only time he contacts us is when he wants money and goes no contact otherwise, and we don't know what we ever did to him to make him treat us this way. 3. Last year when my wife had to be hospitalized, all of my kids flew back home to be there for their mother. Jack didn't want to, but one of his siblings bought him a plane ticket and talked him into flying out. Instead of being glad to be beside his very sick mother at the hospital, he spent the entire visit making everyone run errands for him. His sister has to cook a specific type of meal for him. We had to drive him to the gym at a very specific time he demanded, and acted like it was one huge inconvenience for him to have to fly out. I even talked to my other kids about whether we were bad parents and that caused Jack to act this way, but all my other kids don't know why he ended up so entitled and spoiled. The rest of my kids are extremely different from Jack. We all get along with each other and care about one another. For the rest of my kids, I spent maybe $100,000 on each kid's total college expenses. With Jack's careless spending habits and unwillingness to save us any money, Jack's college years cost me a total of $180,000, so I refused to buy the promised car. Jack's upset and has gone to his grandparents complaining about me. My mother-in-law already hates me, and now she's calling me a jerk, saying that I'm playing favorites because I bought everyone a car and not Jack. Not the jerk. If I were being petty, I'd buy a junk or used car for him. If he wants to be so technical about holding you to a promise, well, that's his car. Tell him the rest of the budget was eaten up by the $80,000. Tell him to learn the consequences of his actions. Not the jerk. For people saying that you raised Jack to be that way, they're completely ignoring the fact that we're human beings and not robots. At some point, personalities start to factor in. My family situation is similar to yours, and I think during the teenage years, adjustments had to be made to accommodate the different personalities in order to set us up for success. My brother and I did not respond to the same treatment, and we received different privileges accordingly. My family would have given me the receipts and bills for my expenses if I acted that entitled. Perhaps that may be what Jack needs instead of a car to help him get a clue. Everyone sucks here. You raised a spoiled brat, and while you're not obligated to buy him a car, you should have forewarned him that dealing with the rent issues meant no car. Am I the jerk for not forcing my stepdaughter to go over to her mother's house? My husband, Tim, 34 male, and I, 33 female, have been married for 3 years. Tim has a daughter, Lucy, who's 13. Both Tim and Lucy's mother, Deborah, were teenagers when Lucy was born. Deborah wanted nothing to do with Lucy and disappeared, so Tim had full custody, and he's been raising Lucy as a single dad when we met. I've been in Lucy's life since she was 6, and I consider her my own. A couple of years ago, Deborah suddenly appeared back in our lives and contacted Tim wanting to meet with Lucy. Deborah was an addict. I'm not sure if she still is, but I wouldn't be surprised, and generally not a great person for a kid to be around. But Tim would allow Lucy to see Deborah once in a while. Lucy seems like she is just going through the motions with finally having her mother in her life. She doesn't particularly seem excited or upset, she just does as she's told. Deborah also has a boyfriend, Don. Recently, after Lucy came back home from dinner with Deborah and Don, she mentioned to Tim and I that she found Don very weird. He didn't explicitly say anything to Lucy, but she felt uncomfortable being around him. A few days ago, Tim had to unexpectedly go on a work trip to another country where he will be completely unavailable for 3 days. He won't have any type of service to communicate with us. That trip also happens to coincide on the same time as when Tim and Deborah agreed that Lucy can spend a night at Deborah's. So I was the one dropping Lucy off at Deborah's, and when we got there, we saw Don sitting on the front porch staring at the car. I looked at Lucy, seeing if she still wanted to even go in, and by the look on her face, I asked her if she wanted to go get ice cream at downtown Disney instead. We live near Disneyland, and downtown Disney is in the shopping area right outside the park. She immediately said yes, so I got out of the car and told Deborah that Lucy doesn't want to go to dinner anymore, and I'm taking her to downtown Disney for ice cream. Deborah started screaming at me, saying I'm a nobody trying to bribe her daughter with ice cream, so she doesn't want to spend dinner with her own mother anymore. I told her Lucy doesn't want to go in, and I won't force her to. Deborah responded that Tim had agreed to Lucy spending the night at her place, and the matter is between her and Tim. I shouldn't be involved or make decisions because I'm not Lucy's mother. That made me really mad, so I hopped back in my car and drove Lucy to downtown Disney. We actually ended up going to Disneyland as well for the rest of the day. Deborah has been spamming my phone, calling me all sorts of names for not forcing Lucy to stay at her place, and Tim is still unavailable and can't be reached for a comment. I genuinely don't think I was being a jerk, but I need some second opinions. Not the jerk. You listened to what your stepdaughter wanted to do. Hopefully when you explain the full situation to Tim, he understands. I would ask Lucy to tell him herself why she didn't want to go there. Then Tim can have a conversation with Deborah himself. He will need to be the one to have the chat with her. You did the right thing. My boyfriend demands I wear an ugly sweater to Christmas dinner with his family. My boyfriend and I have been dating for a few months, and he invited me to meet his family for the first time for Christmas dinner. According to him, it's his brother's, he has 3, family tradition to make new partners wear an ugly Christmas sweater of their choosing as a rite of passage, his words, for entering the family. At first, I thought the concept was cute. I had imagined things like Santa getting stuck in a chimney, lights, bells, etc. But when they mailed me the sweater, my jaw dropped. It was probably the most inappropriate Christmas sweater I've ever seen. Without getting too much into detail, let's just say that Santa was participating in an act that was not okay to be seen in public. I personally thought it was gross, and it was bad enough that if someone at work saw me wearing it, I'd definitely get in trouble. I told my boyfriend that in no way would I wear this, but he said I was being a wet blanket and unsupportive of his family tradition. I said I'd wear any other sweater and would even pay for one myself, but he just called me a spoilsport. I do love my boyfriend, so I actually considered wearing it and asking people to not take pictures as a compromise. But the day of the party, I decided not to wear it last minute. I had to drive separately from work, so my boyfriend didn't know about this prior. When his brother opened the door, he eyed me up and down, and I could tell he wasn't happy that I didn't wear the sweater. My boyfriend was really upset when he saw me, and we argued in the guest room for a bit. His brothers teased me for being so uptight, and I could tell the jokes embarrassed my boyfriend. I ended up leaving the party early without my boyfriend, and we've been fighting via text since. Now, I'm thinking that I was the jerk for taking the joke too seriously. Not the jerk. I honestly thought by the title it was one of those cheesy ugly sweaters, but it seems like it wasn't that. It also seems like they want to turn you into the butt of a joke for the evening. Also, I'm guessing none of the males wore ugly sweaters either. Not the jerk. Ugly sweaters are one thing. Crude sweaters meant as hazing are another thing. That your boyfriend supported the sweater should be a little concerning. Honestly, if a family has a habit of hazing new partners, the best thing you can do for yourself is to set proper expectations immediately and not play along. Starting out with them in a compliant, don't rock the boat attitude is just kicking the can down the road. If they're testing your threshold for compliance and mistreatment, then non-compliance is key. If they're just mean people who are more concerned with their own hilarity, eye roll, than they are with making a guest feel welcome, then again, you're telling them right up front to leave you out of it. Not the jerk. And depending on your boyfriend's willingness to protect you now, in the beginning, when you're still in the honeymoon phase and everyone is on their best behavior, really take a long, hard look at this family's dynamics. With the expectation that the first year or two are when everyone's putting their best foot forward, the inference is that it's all downhill from here. Are you really looking down the road and seeing a good outcome here? Update. I really appreciate everyone who took the time to message me. After reading your comments, I really thought long and hard about my boyfriend's family and whether or not I wanted to be with a partner who wouldn't respect my boundaries. We got into one final fight when he nagged me to apologize to his brothers all separately. I told him that if he wore the sweater they bought me to our Friendsmas party, about 15 to 20 attendees, then I'd apologize. He immediately freaked out and said no, and tried to argue that they wouldn't understand because it's not their tradition. I explained that it had nothing to do with tradition, but rather with my personal comfort level and whether or not the sweater was an appropriate article of clothing. I asked him why he felt uncomfortable wearing the sweater in front of friends, and he refused to answer. He froze up, and that's when I realized it wasn't going to work out. He knew that it was inappropriate, and he himself refused to wear it in public, yet he was too stubborn to apologize and be on my side. I told him it wasn't going to work out, so I guess I'm going into the new year single as a Pringle. A few friends found out about the breakup already, and this might have made me a jerk for now, but I sent them the photo of the sweater and explained what happened. I'm also glad to know that even people in real life were grossed out. I don't know what will happen with his friendships with those people, but it's none of my business at this point. Thanks guys, and happy holidays. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend and his family? Please let us know. Good job, OP. Now that's what you call dodging a bullet. A Christmas bullet. Am I the jerk for upstaging my wife and our Christmas cookie baking tradition? I'm 25, male, and my wife is 23, female, and we have a tradition every Christmas where we would bake Christmas cookies and frost them with our friends. We'd then give the cookies out to friends and family and helpers. Every year, my wife would take on the bulk of the baking duties, insisting that only she knew how to bake them right and only letting whoever is helping frost them. She always insisted on doing all the baking because frosting is the fun part and the only thing people want to do. Usually this frosting and baking marathon would last until the wee hours of the morning and start around noon. Well, this year, for reasons that aren't relevant to this post today, she won't be available on the day we normally do all of this. She was sad that we wouldn't be able to do our cooking tradition. I said that I was more than capable of baking the cookies. She seemed to think I was joking and that I could basically never do it myself. Well, I said I'd try, and she wished me a sarcastic good luck. Well, in the run-up to the days of baking and frosting, I started running drills to optimize production. I started rearranging the house in various configurations, running tests on the dough we were using to see how long it took to bake, and making appropriate changes while running it by taste testers, substituting ingredients for quicker bake time while preserving taste, making the cookies as thin as possible without compromising frosting ratio, canvas space for creativity, and/or comprising structural integrity, etc. Come the day of baking, I have everything down to a science, and friends and family come in, I give them a rundown. After a couple hours, most kinks are worked out, and cookies are flowing out at a breakneck pace. Eventually, we start running out of material, something that never happened when my wife was running it. We start making runs to the store for the necessary raw materials to fuel our mighty cookie forges. By the time we were exhausted around 2 a.m., we had produced at least 5 times the amount of cookies we ever had before. Well, my wife gets home a couple days later and is weirdly upset. She insists the cookies taste weird, that we spent too much money, and that I was actively trying to make her look bad by making so much more than her. In truth, I ran blind tests to see if anyone could differentiate between our old recipe and mine, and no one could. I also only spent 40% more than previous years as I slotted in some cheaper ingredients and bought some stuff in bulk, and I had absolutely zero intention of upstaging her. I simply had the goal of maximizing cookie production. She says that even if I didn't do it on purpose, that I should have thought about how it made her look to our circles, and that I have embarrassed her, and she actually called me a jerk. She's never called me a jerk in all 3 years of our marriage, so I can't help but think I am. Am I the jerk? I don't know if you're the jerk, but it sounds like you took something she enjoys and was sad about missing and did it without her. I would be sad if someone did that to me personally. Edited to add my vote, not the jerk. To me, it sounds like she didn't think he could do it, or even better than her. Also, it's a tradition. Why do they have to stop because one person is missing for that year? She liked baking and basically gatekeeping it from others. He didn't do anything wrong with taking it over and trying at it for one time that his wife couldn't do it. Not the jerk. If it's a tradition you do together, then yeah, you don't do it on your own. My husband and I apple pick and strawberry pick together every year. I couldn't see myself going alone. It's a tradition that we do it together. I'd be hurt if he went without me. Not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong per se, and your methods sound fun and add a competitive edge which enhances the excitement for some people. But no one likes to discover that a tradition on which they've spent time and effort and enjoyed doing doesn't need them at all to function, and may even be better without their hard work. Maybe consider telling your wife how much you and your friends missed her at this year's event, and that you'd rather have her and less cookies than so many more cookies without her. My daughter demands I pay for her school trip. I, 37 female, have a daughter, Mia, who's 15. Mia is very forgetful and irresponsible when it comes to school. She's barely on time and late to school most days, even though we live a 10-minute walk away. She will do homework last minute and often ask for extensions with her work. She had a tendency to remind me to pay for school-related things like lunch money just before I'm going to bed. Or that she needs to take something into school, so can we run to the store and quickly get it? Last month, I went on a wild goose chase to help Mia locate ingredients for her home economics class after she told me late at night that she needs these ingredients, and she just checked the fridge and we don't have any. She was reading the ingredients off an email, and when I saw it was dated a week prior, I got annoyed because she could have told me this back when I was doing my grocery shopping for the family. I told her the next time she needs something for school to tell me the day she gets told or the day after at the latest, or I will not be helping her out. My husband has stopped helping Mia with her last-minute requests and calls me a pushover for helping her out. But when she asked today to put down the deposit for a school trip, I put my foot down. Mia has known since the start of the school year she had a school trip to Germany. Her school sent an email out 2 months ago asking for deposits for kids to secure their place on the trip. It's about $150, and Mia asked me today to pay as the deadline is midnight or she may not be able to go. I reminded her what I said last time about deadlines and organization, and as she chose to tell me last minute, I will not be paying for her deposit. She got upset as all of her friends from history class are going. I told Mia that she can pay for it herself from her savings as she does have a part-time job, which is more than enough to cover her deposit, but she wanted to save up to buy a new game console. I told her to pick if she wanted to go on the trip or to get the new game console, and she called me a jerk, and now I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable. My husband is on my side, but my youngest said it was mean, and Mia is very upset with me. ETA, Mia does not have ADHD, but she is dyslexic, so this does explain the schoolwork sometimes. But she will ask for extensions on top of her extensions, which is a sore spot for her, and my husband who wants her to be more organized and not leave work last minute. Mia has been tested for ADHD and does not have it. I did my research at the time, and I realized that it's often overlooked for girls, but even after getting another opinion, she doesn't have it. She gets help from a school advisor regarding her dyslexia, and at home we have discussed strategies to help her stay on track with her responsibilities. Not the jerk. If she didn't have enough of her own money, I'd probably cave in, but she wants you to spend your money instead, knowing full well that she blew it again. Stick to your guns. She needs to literally pay for her mistake. If she can remember what game console she's saving for, she can remember her obligations. If she has a cell phone, why isn't she setting her own alarms and entering reminders on her phone's calendar? She's 15. Stop babying her. You're not doing her any favors. How is she supposed to learn and eventually move out on her own if you're always enabling her? Not the jerk. But if she has issues with organization and has not been able to figure it out herself, it's your place as her parents to help her navigate this. For example, you can set up a weekly family check-in where she actively checks on all the things she needs to do, compiles a list, and shares it with you, along with the respective deadlines. Joint activities like that would teach her the skills to be more organized. Expecting her to figure it out on her own without guiding her, and then getting annoyed with her when she fails to be organized, seems unfair, or at least not helpful to her situation. Am I the jerk for wearing a white dress to a wedding after the bride asked me to? Oh my goodness, my head is in such a jumble right now. Let me try to make sense of all this. When I, 26 female, was 5, we moved, and our next door neighbors had a girl my age named Bella, who's 27 now. We immediately connected and we grew up thick as thieves. Our families were also close. I moved a couple of hours away for college while Bella stayed home. She would come visit me frequently, stay with me, and we had great times. I met Barrett, 26, male, in an economics class sophomore year, and I realized we had a lot of friends in common. He was a smart, attractive guy, so we ended up hooking up a few times after study sessions. It was fun, but there wasn't really long-term chemistry, so we remained friends. We never even talked about dating. We weren't close after this, but we were on group text threads together and saw each other frequently at parties. I introduced Bella to Barrett at a party senior year, and it was love at first sight for her. She interrogated me about him, and I informed her of our history. She seemed pretty upset about the fact that we had hooked up, but I assured her that there was absolutely nothing romantic there and that she had my blessing to pursue him. She did, and after a few months, they started dating officially. She was over the moon, and I was happy that she was happy. I graduated and accepted a job 6 hours away from home. Shortly afterwards, Bella and Barrett ended up moving in together in my hometown. I visited them frequently at first, but life got busy, so we ended up seeing each other annually at holidays. Last Christmas, my family hosted a Christmas Eve party with our two families at which Barrett proposed to Bella. It was a heartfelt proposal, and everybody was thrilled for them. Bella wanted to talk about nothing but wedding planning that holiday, and we had tons of fun brainstorming ideas together. There were no signs of what was to come. Over the next few months, I expected to be formally asked to be Bella's maid of honor. She had mentioned this over the holidays, but the ask never came. She started screening my calls. Finally, I received a save the date in the mail and still hadn't heard from her about whether I was in the wedding, so I got her on the phone and asked her. She told me that she had thought it through and didn't think I should be in the wedding at all because I lived so far away. She thought it would make coordinating bridal events too difficult. She was making her cousin, who she doesn't even like, her maid of honor. I was pretty hurt by this. I was her closest and oldest friend. I introduced her to her fiancé and was friends with him too. I told her that I could get the time off of work, would buy plane tickets, whatever was required of me to participate, that I didn't think that it was going to be as challenging as she thought. She shrugged this off. Instead, she directed the conversation to whether I was going to be bringing someone to the wedding. I was a little confused by this question because I just had a bad breakup and she knew all about what went down. I told her that since I wasn't seeing anybody currently, I'd probably be attending solo. She told me that she would keep my +1 open until the last possible minute and encouraged me to try to find a date so I wouldn't be lonely. I thought this was a nice gesture, but reassured her that with my family present and tons of mutual friends from college in our hometown, that I would be fine. The next few months passed without much incident. I didn't hear a ton from Bella. I probably could have reached out more, but I was still stinging a bit from not being asked to be in the wedding party. I also saw on social media that she had had an emergency party that she hadn't even told me about or invited me to. That also hurt, but I didn't say anything. I figured we were just growing apart. It happens. Then 6 weeks prior to the wedding, I got a call from Bella. She told me that one of her bridesmaids had dropped out and that she was hoping that I could fill in. I wouldn't be going to any of the events as those were already booked, but I would be in the wedding party. I was thrilled and relieved and accepted immediately. She told me that since she was doing a reverse color palette for the bridal party, where all of the bridesmaids and groomsmen were wearing white and she and the groom were wearing black. This didn't seem that strange. Bella has always liked to stand out and has unconventional taste. She apologized for the late notice and asked if I could find a white dress in time. I had a white slip dress already that would work perfect, and I sent her a picture of it on the call to see if it would work. She verbally approved it and tagged it with a thumbs up on the text chain. This will be important later. The wedding was at noon, so we were supposed to meet to do hair and makeup at the venue at 8. I left my parents' home early and arrived in sweats with my dress in a bag, and I greeted Bella and the other girls. We had fun drinking champagne and getting ready. About 2 hours prior to the wedding, Bella told everyone to get our dresses on so we could do some pictures. I grabbed my bag and went to the bathroom to change and tweak my makeup. When I re-entered the room, every last bridesmaid was in a blue dress. I was the only one in white. My stomach dropped. My mind raced back to the conversation I had with Bella. She had said white, right? I hadn't misheard. No, I was certain. She had called out the reverse color scheme. I had Googled it. No, this was a setup. Bella was in the middle of the room in a bathrobe with a resigned look on her face. She said to her cousin, "I told you she was going to do something like this." Her cousin approached me and asked what I was wearing. I mumbled that Bella had told me to wear white. Bella didn't even blink. She stared back and huffed out a laugh and said something about how of course I would have to make today all about me. The cousin started screaming at me, going off on me about how I was jealous, in love with Barrett, and how completely unhinged I was. Honestly, I froze in that moment. I was so spun around by how fast everything went, from great to horrible, I couldn't even find the words to defend myself. Eventually, I stammered out that I had another dress at my parents' house and could go home and change. Bella said something like, "I think we both know that this is the end of our friendship. I've given you too many chances. It's time for you to go." I started to cry. I didn't really know what was happening or what she was talking about, but I knew that whatever was going down was really bad. Finally, my legs started to work again and I fled. I left all of my things at the venue and just ran to my car and went home, sobbing in the white dress. About an hour later, my phone blew up. Texts from nearly everyone in my life telling me that I was bitter, that I was a jerk, that I needed to grow up and get over my jealousy, asking how I could do that to Bella. Even my mother sent me a text telling me how disappointed she was in me and that we had talked when they got home. I did what any rational person would do in this situation. I got into the liquor cabinet and I started drinking. As a result, the conversation with my parents finally arrived home was somewhat confused. My dad wouldn't even look at me, and my mom and I kept talking past each other. She outright didn't believe that I had been told to wear white, and I didn't understand why. Then she said something like, "Because of everything else that's happened." And I was like, "What are you talking about? What does that mean?" And she said, "You know, your ultimatums to Bella?" The next few hours revealed the truth. Over the last several months, Bella has been building a fiction with nearly everyone in my life that I am mentally unstable and madly in love with Barrett. She's concocted a web of outlandish tales and systematically turned my family and friends against me. My boyfriend apparently dumped me because of my feelings for Barrett. Lie. He cheated and I dumped him. I told Bella that she needs to choose between me and Barrett. Never happened. I told Bella that I couldn't be in the wedding party because I couldn't support her marriage given that Barrett was meant for me. Lie. I had a major meltdown before the engagement party, and that's why I wasn't there. On, lies on top of lies. In all of these stories, Bella had painted herself as the patient, long-suffering friend trying to deal with a friend clearly going through a tough time. She expressed understanding for my unrequited love for Barrett and empathized with her how hard it must be for me to see her marry the love of my life, and has made great efforts to try to sustain our friendship despite how complicated the situation is. The lie has been going on so long, my mom literally did not believe me. Finally, I grabbed my phone and handed it to her and told her to go through my text messages with Bella. Asked her to show me any evidence of any of that happening. That was when she was scrolling through reading our messages that she saw the picture of the white dress I had sent Bella with her thumbs up on it. I had completely forgotten about it. The absence of any ultimatums or Barrett drama in our text and the picture of the approved dress flipped my mom. She finally believed me, and she was horrified that she had bought into a false narrative. She called my dad into the room and explained what was what. My dad isn't the type of person you would want to upset. We had to spend significant energy trying to calm him down so he didn't walk next door and rip the house from the foundation. My mom still says that I'm a bit of a jerk because I should never have assumed that I could wear white to someone's wedding. I should have confirmed with the other bridesmaids about what they were wearing, and that was part of my job as a member of the bridal party. Fine, I own that. But it doesn't change the fact that I never meant to hurt Bella, and she has been setting me up for this epic fall for months. The next day, hungover on multiple levels, I sent screen caps of my call history with Bella and the photo of the approved dress text to multiple people. Unfortunately, this is where my occupation works against me. I'm a graphic designer, and people believe that I photoshopped the image. Trust me, if I was going to Photoshop some proof, it would have been a heck of a lot more compelling than somebody liking an image. So pretty much nobody believes me except my mom, dad, and one of the other bridesmaids, one of Bella's friends from college I don't know well. She was there during the dress incident, and she found me on social media and DM'd me that she could tell from the stunned look on my face that I was telling the truth. She said Bella got really sick during lockdown, and ever since then she's changed as a person, becoming cruel and self-absorbed. She said the wedding events had been horrific and Bella was a monster, and she was planning on going no contact now that it was done. So that's 3 people out of hundreds that don't think I'm a jerk. Everybody else does. My reputation destroyed. My life in tatters. I don't think I'm the jerk, but I submit myself to Reddit's judgment. Update. In the immediate aftermath of the wedding and post, I did as people suggested and sent out a screen recording of my text messages with Bella, all of them going back months to counter her narrative that I was unstable and explaining my side of the story. There were 3 camps that emerged as a result. First were my high school friends. Most of them are religious and had been extensively brainwashed by Bella. None took my side except for the one bridesmaid who had already contacted me. Next were the college friends closer to me. None of them had heard Bella's whisper campaign and accepted the evidence immediately. Several of them told me that they had never really liked Bella and that she had talked crap about me behind my back. This was news to me, but also a relief because these are the relationships I mostly don't want to lose, and it looks like I won't. The college friends who were closer to Barrett just don't really care. A lot of these guys are classic dude bros that are drama adverse, so I'm not really shocked they aren't relishing the chance to wade through it. No hostility coming from these people anymore, but no support either. I can live with that. Bella's nuclear and extended family I've given up on. When I was back for Christmas, I tried to go over to speak to Bella's parents, who were like parents to me also, and they refused to even open the door. I left a letter in their mailbox. It went unacknowledged. In general, things have settled into a new normal, and I just focus on my life and my work, and I'm trying to move forward. I went home for the holidays and just hung out with my parents. Life was okay. Until January 1st, I signed into an older email account that I haven't used in a while to reset a password. In the spirit of New Year digital housekeeping, I started going through old messages, intending to close this account for good, when I saw an email from my ex with the subject line, "I win." I can't describe the gut punch that I felt when I saw that mail. I freeze up now just writing about it. My ex, let's call him Matthew, was the perfect boyfriend, until he wasn't. He became very controlling after our first year of dating. He wanted to control what I wore, what I ate, who I talked to, who I connected with, and what I posted on social media. He was very cunning and nuanced with the way he tore me down slowly over time, but then he slipped up. I found out he was cheating, and I woke up enough to get out of there. The breakup was a nightmare. He refused to let me break up with him. We were living together. He put tracking software on my phone and bugged my car. He had people at my job reporting to him on my movements. I couldn't get away from him. I couldn't hide. He kept showing up. The police were useless. It was horrible for months, living under the terror that he would show up again. I had changed my job, my number, my address, my email account, my social media profiles were private. This was the only place I forgot to block him. The "I win" email was sent the day after the wedding. He said that he had become close with Bella after we broke up. He called himself the architect of my demise. He said he had fed Bella paranoia about me and Barrett, and that together they had planned my punishment. He said losing everyone important in my life was what I deserved, and then he said we should get back together, unless I wanted more unfortunate things like this to keep happening. Yes, he is delusional. It took me a while to collect myself and get my crap back together after reading that. I fell apart for a few days. My mom helped pull me back together and now knows the details about what happened with Matthew. She connected me with a family friend, an attorney, that's currently helping me file for a restraining order against Matthew. I tried during the stalking period, but couldn't afford an attorney and was denied. I think with the email evidence and the attorney saying things the right way, it will be granted this time, but the hearing is not for another couple of weeks. It's on Zoom, and Matthew will get a chance to be there. I'm terrified to see him, even just on screen. Once I had dealt with my own safety, I had the realization that I was in possession of absolute proof that the wedding incident was a setup. I considered blasting it out everywhere, but I still have so much shame about the relationship, and I can't bring myself to do it. So I decided to just forward it to Barrett with a small amount of explanation. Barrett did not respond to the email. I do not know what happened in Bella and Barrett's household after that, but what I do know is that 2 nights later, Bella drunk drove her car to my parents' house. While attempting to park in their driveway, she ran over the mailbox. When my parents answered the door, she started screaming about how I'm a homewrecker. In her drunken ramblings, my parents were able to figure out that Barrett had left her. Her parents were called over from next door to collect her. My dad said that they seemed extremely embarrassed. I know a lot of people here will probably be fist-pumping the air that Bella met with some karma. I'm not one of them. Matthew is a monster, and I know firsthand how charming and convincing he is. Bella, much like I did, fell for his act. Her happiness has been destroyed by Matthew too, and I have a really hard time blaming her now that I know that he was pulling the strings. But she also made her choices. I'm not dumb enough to reconcile with her either. My #1 priority is my safety, and anybody who has ties to Matthew is someone that I need to steer far away from. Bella will have to find her own path back to good. There's a role that opened on my team in another country. It's a manager position, which would be a promotion for me, and my boss thinks I should apply. While it would be harder, having even more distance from my folks, I think being in an entirely new country might help cultivate a feeling of safety for me, one that I'm not sure I can get in this city now. So that might be what's next for me. I've just been betrayed by the 2 people I trusted the most, and I don't know what to feel anymore. I won't lie, I've been suspecting my fiancé was having an affair, but I didn't have any solid evidence to accuse him. Even then, I had a feeling that I didn't want to dig any deeper because I was scared in case what I was suspecting was true. 12 days ago, I came home from visiting my mom's and I headed upstairs to wake my fiancé, as he has a habit of sleeping in way past 2 p.m. and then complain that I didn't wake him. I open the door and all I see is my sister rushing to try to get out of the sleepwear that belonged to me. I don't know how to explain it, but my mind just went blank, like whatever I was thinking about beforehand suddenly disappeared. You know when you stand up too fast and your head just gets dizzy? That's what I felt, alongside the feeling of sickness brewing in my stomach. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds, looking at the 2 people I trusted most look more shocked than I felt. My husband jumped out of bed and suddenly came up with excuses that went from, "It was an accident," to, "I was lonely." I probably should add, I lost my best friend just 2 weeks ago. The girl I knew for over 15 years was suddenly out of my life, and even though I'm surrounded by people, I've told my fiancé about how alone, sad, and guilty I feel that I couldn't have done anything to help her. I just left. I didn't take my car because at that point my eyes were just about to start flooding. I walked to my friend who lives 10 minutes away and confided in her about what had happened. The amount of grief I felt from not only losing my BFF, but losing my relationships with my fiancé and sister within the same 2-week period. Now that I'm sitting down to write this, I don't know if any of these relationships will ever be mended or could ever go back to the way they were. I don't understand why my sister of all people would do this. There was never any favoritism towards any of us for her to feel spite. I've never intentionally tried to hurt her. I gave her shelter when she had no place to go, and despite her not paying a single penny, I bought her food that she liked, made sacrifices in my own home for her. She kept ranting about how our living room walls gave her a headache. They were white, so I took time out of my day to paint it a nice gray color. My fiancé too, I gave that man everything. I was willing to have kids with him despite the fact I always wanted to be child-free. I was going to start a family so that he was happy. I gave him comfort whenever something bad happened to him. I spent hours watching unfunny movies that he seemed to find hilarious. I even gave him a locket with our anniversary photo in it. These past few days, I went from sadness to being angry, and despite being smoke-free for 2 years, I picked the habit back up. Now there's moments where I go to do something but automatically lose interest, and even during dinner, I don't know how to explain it properly as I've never felt this way before. But it's like I'm bored of eating, and I have to physically make myself eat something, and I have no idea what's going on to my body. For some reason, it feels as if I've gone into hibernation. I sleep almost 17 hours a day now, and even for the rest of those hours, I'm still tired and force myself to stay awake. Both of them asked to meet up on Wednesday. My sister's exact message was, "Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but can you meet me and your fiancé? We want to talk, and we want you to properly hear us out. The situation you found us in was not the most ideal situation to put you in a good headspace to talk about it right there and then. Please let us explain. I love you, and you're my sister, and I don't want to lose you. Please." I think it's too late. It was too late from whenever this affair started, or even when you started wanting to hook up with my fiancé. I miss my sister, but according to what I saw, the sister I miss and whoever my sister is now are not the same person. I haven't talked to anyone yet, except the one friend I'm currently staying with at the moment. I'm scared I'll be seen as a failure of a future wife, but now I don't even think I want to be a wife anymore. But I guess I'd rather share to strangers than people who know me personally. Update. So far, nothing big has happened. The friend I'm staying with has offered to come with me to talk to my parents about this, also including my older brother. She honestly has been my rock through the whole situation, and I couldn't ask for a better support system from one person, though I don't plan on putting that on her shoulders since it would be stressful. I'm currently looking into therapy for both my grief and the affair. I'm not well versed legal-wise, so I'm currently in the process of looking for a lawyer, just so legally I know I'm in the clear in case there would be a loophole somewhere. I did contact my sister, and I said, "I don't plan on meeting with you on Wednesday. I'll talk to you when I'm ready, whether it be tomorrow or years from now. It doesn't matter. You both owe me my own time to heal after the two people I trusted the most went behind my back, betrayed my trust, all under my roof that you both lived rent-free under. Goodbye." I can't lie. I was almost ready to tell her to meet me there and then when she sent that message, but I realized, and through help of people in the comments, that I can't think enough. I need time to work on myself mentally rather than repair a long-gone relationship with my sister. No, I don't plan on going back to my ex, and I never will. Maybe one day I'll hear him out, but today is not that day. As for now, I'm getting ready to try and explain to my parents everything that happened. I don't have any evidence between my ex and sister. However, I do have their messages they sent me, which traps one another. Update. I got myself into therapy and began taking care of myself and myself only. Entering my relationship with my ex, I hadn't noticed how much time I spent taking care of him and neglecting myself and my needs. It was one of those relationships that you didn't notice the faults until you leave and become a sort of specter of what that relationship was actually like. I think part of me was so invested in believing he was a good guy because how past relationships had hurt me before that I tried very hard to hold on to the idea that I had finally found someone who was different. Loving the wrong person can lead to devastating consequences, and I just happened to do that exact thing. Whenever I had seen stories before about people staying with their cheating partner, I was so quick to criticize how stupid that would be and thought, what did you expect when they cheat again? But now that I've been through that, it was very eye-opening. It's not easy to just give up and leave behind someone you had invested so much love, time, and effort into. Yes, you can lose all love for that person in seconds, but you never lose the feeling of the love you felt before, if that makes sense. After I found out, I did want to try and work it out for many reasons, but through the help of my therapist, she helped me realize that I wanted to stay because after my best friend's passing, he was the only thing that felt familiar in the moment. Everyone is growing up and moving away in my life. I was in a position that I felt so alone, but to expect people not to change is to not allow growth. They moved out of my house and I moved back in. I won't lie, it was lonely. I was so used to other voices in my home and it felt empty. But an empty room is open to hundreds of ideas in my opinion. I redecorated with the help of friends and some family, and even though I had lost 2 people, thanks to them, I was able to make memories that I'll always cherish. I won't try and cover up that before I got therapy, I was a wreck. I was just so tired of disappointment from my ex that the cheating was the final blow that knocked me back into reality. My sister's betrayal hurt way worse because we share the same parents. We used to share bunk beds, and without my knowledge, shared the same partner. But I owe them a thanks for allowing me to remove people who clearly had no good intentions. I will always love my sister, even though I don't want to, but sometimes there are strings attached to people that just can't be cut, and she's one of them. I'll never welcome her into my home again, but I'll answer the phone if she was at her lowest. Even though she was a snake in my garden, doesn't mean she's not my sister. She did try to call a couple of weeks after she had moved out, and at first I was angry at her. I honestly just wanted to get revenge. But when I answered and heard her voice, I just felt sorry for her. Everyone in my family knew how terrible she was, and just for some pleasure, she ruined the last relationship that was trying to help her. I just think she's a very self-destructive person that will never learn. They were constantly staying at different friends' houses because they couldn't afford to rent anywhere. My sister is apparently cheating on my ex with random people, and none of them are able to hold down a job. I would say karma, but it's just sad. My ex traded someone who became a pushover for him, who gave him everything she could, for someone who couldn't give a hoot about him. I wish them well. I deserve better than that, and I just hope one day they grow up and begin to become better people than they are right now. My family no longer talks to my sister, so she's on her own. Some things I hear about her remind me of just a confused kid. However, I did see her on New Year's Eve. Me and some friends went clubbing because why not, and we unintentionally ran into her. At first, I tried to ignore her and just pretend I didn't see her, but she ended up coming up to me and tried to talk to me as if nothing had happened. As the ex-partner, I wanted revenge, but as her sister, I wanted to hug her and ask her why. But I just left. After we remove labels of sister, or her partner's ex, or whatever, we share the same DNA, and that will always be the thing that connects us. As for my dating life, I'm currently seeing someone and have been doing so since November. I deserve happiness, and I deserve a lot more than what my ex gave me. However, I'm still dealing with issues from that relationship that has me in moments of guilt and not giving my full trust. I'm happy that he understands and listens to me when I have concerns, but I don't want to constantly live with issues I carried because of someone else. We're taking it slow, and he always reassures me he's a good guy, and I'm happy he's in my life. I will find my peace with the situation eventually, but I'll have to work to get to that point, and that's okay. My pregnant daughter is demanding to move in with me and bringing her boyfriend who doesn't even work. My daughter is 23. I'm dad, by the way. A few years ago, my wife, not her mom, took her to get a birth control implant, and she was always happy on it. Fast forward about a year, and she meets a guy, he's 28, online, and falls in love. He lives in another state. She quickly started talking about how they both want to get married and both want to have kids. About 3 months before her trip to meet him in person, she told me she had gotten her implant out and switched to the pill because she doesn't like the implant anymore. This kind of raised my eyebrow. So I talked to her. We go over how important it is to take the pill properly every day, and we talk about other birth control options. She's set on the pill. I also went over the cost of kids and the amount of work and responsibility babies are with her. Part of my concern here is that her mother openly admits she stopped taking her pills and intentionally got pregnant so I would marry her. I did, and we're divorced now. I also told her that I love my kids and raising them, but I had no interest in raising theirs. I'm enjoying retirement. I have a 10 and an 8-year-old with my wife. Well, lo and behold, she gets pregnant on her trip. Boyfriend is not financially stable and is in another state, and due to morning sickness, she's been missing a lot of work. She's intent on keeping the baby. She called last night and asked if she and her boyfriend could come live with me so he could move here and find a job. He doesn't have any significant work history or education and is morbidly obese, which causes him a lot of health problems, so currently he's on disability. And they would save up money and be out before the baby is born. Also note, her mom does not have room at her house. I said no. My daughter has a history of not following through on her commitments, and I know that she won't actually move out before she has the baby, and probably not for a long while after. She has trouble taking responsibility for herself, and I'm guessing we'll be the ones dealing with the baby mostly. We currently have a cat she adopted and then didn't want because she wouldn't clean its box, so it went to the bathroom everywhere. On top of that, I don't want this man that I don't know and she barely knows in my home with my kids. So now he's flying up here so they can find a place together. She currently rents a room in a party house. I told her I would help her with the deposit and first month's rent, but if they wanted to go play house, I wasn't going to fund it, so don't expect me to pay when they can't. Now she's upset with me. Her mom has chewed me up one side and down the other for not supporting her. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. We really need to normalize the fact that as parents, it's your duty to ensure your kid is taken care of, no matter how old they are. Not only are you extremely judgmental of your daughter's life, but now you flat out refuse to help her in her time of need. You sound like a deadbeat dad to me, and honestly, you don't even deserve your daughter. She deserves so much better, and it's a shame you're not man enough to step up to the plate and be an actual father. I didn't even show up at my own dad's funeral because he was also a judgmental jerk that always had an opinion and couldn't keep his mouth shut. Don't be surprised when your daughter doesn't show up at yours or even make a post on social media about it.
My ex-girlfriend told me that my current girlfriend was the one who sabotaged our relationship. I, 28 male, I'm really confused about the events of this last month. My ex-girlfriend Julie, who's 29, thinks that my current girlfriend Mindy, who's 28, is manipulative and sabotaged our 4-year relationship. I was in a loving relationship with Julie for the last 4 years. We met through some mutual friends. Julie and I were very compatible in terms of our love for outdoor activities and running. We have very similar lifestyles and supported each other well for the last 4 years. We've also been living together for the last 3 years. We even discussed getting married during the summer. Everything was great, and I was planning to propose to her over the holidays. However, I started to see changes in her behavior around September. She was acting distant and looked stressed out. It was quite noticeable, and I was really worried. I trust her with all my heart, and I could not imagine she would be cheating on me. However, she did spend more time by herself. Around the same time, Julie's friend, Mindy, messaged me privately and asked me if I could meet her secretly, as she wanted to tell me something about Julie. Mindy and Julie worked together, and I had known Mindy ever since I started dating Julie. I was surprised, but to be honest, I assumed the worst. I met her at a cafe after work. She asked me if things were going okay between Julie and I. She told me that Julie told her that she was planning to leave me soon. This was a total shock to me. I asked her if there was anyone else that Julie was interested in, and she told me no. Julie confided in her that she was not sure about marrying me. She told me she just had to tell me this as she did not want me to be blindsided. I was devastated. I started putting more effort into making our relationship more exciting and planning more dates, etc. Mindy was also helping me through this time and telling me more about what Julie told her. Eventually, before Thanksgiving, Julie told me that she loved me, but she wanted to take a break for a month to live alone. She said that she just wanted to live alone for a month to make sure she wanted to marry me. I was completely heartbroken. I asked her if she wanted to pursue someone else. She told me that this was not the case, and I better not do anything stupid either. She loves me with all her heart, but she just wants to stay away from me to make sure that she's marrying me for love, and not because she is used to being with me. I didn't understand that at all. I told her that if she is not sure after 4 years if she wants to marry me, then maybe we should just break up. We had a big fight and broke up after a few days. As our lease was ending, we decided to part ways in December. She got a new apartment, and I kept our old apartment and just took her name off the lease. After the breakup, I was feeling very lonely as I wasn't used to being in the apartment alone. I didn't want to keep on being sad and hence invited a bunch of friends over for New Year's party. I also invited Mindy. We had a good time, and my friends were doing their best to cheer me up. Mindy also mingled with my friends, and it was good. Mindy decided to stay back to help me clean up, and we hooked up that night. I felt guilty, but Mindy did cheer me up. Since then, we have hung out almost daily at my place. I'm still sad about Julie, but I won't lie that being with Mindy does make me feel happy. She's sweet and caring. Last Sunday, we woke up and someone was banging on the door. I went to open it, and it was Julie. She looked furious and started yelling at me. She kept on accusing me of cheating on her. I told her I most certainly did not cheat on her, and she was the one who broke up with me. Mindy was also at my apartment. Julie was just angry at both of us. She started calling Mindy a manipulative jerk and told me that Mindy was the one who suggested to her that she should take some time away from me to understand her true feelings. I calmed her down and asked her to explain herself. She told me that ever since our marriage talk, she told Mindy about it, and Mindy kept on asking Julie if she was sure about marrying me. Mindy suggested she take some time to herself to understand her true feelings, and that I would understand and give her space. When I said no, Mindy convinced her that I was so controlling that I couldn't even give her 1 month to herself and convinced her to break up with me. Mindy told me that she did not say any such things, and these were all Julie's ideas, and she was just there during these conversations. She did tell Julie that she told me about some of the things so that I got a chance to make things right with her over the last few months. That made Julie more angry, and she started accusing me of emotionally cheating on her. Julie told me that the last few weeks have made her realize that we were meant to be together, but she now cannot believe I could move on from a 4-year relationship in a week. On one hand, I want to believe Julie, but she broke up with me for no fault of my own. Mindy was there for me when I was down, but now I also doubt her.
She suddenly started talking to me out of the blue, as we were never really close before, and immediately became my support after the breakup, although Julie was her close friend. Am I the jerk to emotionally cheat on Julie? Should I have told her about Mindy's texts? Should I have not moved on from her so quickly, even though Julie broke up with me? I was just hurting, and Mindy was right there to support me. I need advice from someone with a clear mind on what's going on. Mindy played you both. It's kind of obvious from what you wrote. Yeah, the level of obliviousness from OP is kind of shocking. I bet when in several years Mindy will go full out gone girl on him, he will be all surprised Pikachu face. But there were no red flags at all. Mindy wanted her friend's man, and she knew what she was doing, telling Julie about her true feelings just to hook up with you. She's a manipulative jerk. Am I the jerk for wanting my mother-in-law to move out after she kicked out my parents? I, 45 female, live with my kids, who are 12, 14, and 15, and my husband, who's 46, and mother-in-law, who's 65. My mother-in-law moved in with us back in 2015 after my father-in-law passed because she was financially struggling. My mother-in-law is not easy to live with, and we struggled immensely at the beginning, but after a few years, we found a way to make things work. Then recently, 3 months ago to be exact, my parents, who are both 68, their house burned down, and they moved in with us while everything is sorted out with insurance and so on. My boys are sharing a room, as my parents are currently staying in my eldest room. My mother-in-law has struggled with this and seems to hate my mother being around. My mother has done nothing to upset her or to disturb her. In fact, my parents' bedroom is on the other side of the house. She doesn't, however, have a problem with my father and always finds a way to hang out with him. A few days ago, while I was away for work, a massive argument happened between my mother and mother-in-law. My mother had accused her of trying to get with my father, and there were some inappropriate texts sent to my father. My father immediately showed it to my mother, and my mother responded as if she was my father to see how far mother-in-law would go, and well, she went far. Well, my mother confronted her, and mother-in-law called the police, saying she felt threatened, who then escorted my parents out of the house. This all happened while my husband was at work and the kids were at school. My parents went to stay at a hotel, and they explained what happened to me over the phone. When I returned, I gave mother-in-law 2 weeks to move out. My husband thinks I'm escalating things and that I should forgive his mother's actions because she was lonely and confused. FYI, there's nothing wrong with her. She's in good health. So, am I the jerk for wanting her out of our house and my life? FYI, my husband has not seen the texts and pictures his mother sent my father. The only reason he hasn't seen it is because he refused to, but I think I'll have to insist because I need him to really understand how she's been. Also, I wanted to kick her out immediately, but my husband begged me to give him 2 weeks so he could find a place for her, and my parents, being the saints that they are, said that I should give him that. My husband has profusely apologized to my parents, but my parents aren't upset with us and hold only my mother-in-law responsible, as it was her actions that led to this. The police asked my parents to leave since my mother-in-law technically lives here. To avoid escalating the situation, my parents just left. The police officers did not file any charges and just left after a chat with everyone involved. Nobody got hurt. Mother-in-law moved in with us after she had lost almost everything. Father-in-law passed after a long battle with cancer. Medical costs ate up pretty much most of their savings, and she had to sell their house. This led her to spiral into a deep depression. My husband was very worried for his mother, and for good reason, as she was in a terrible state at the time. So we decided to move her in with us. Mother-in-law didn't just kick OP's parents out. She called the cops on them and had them removed from the house, which reeks of mother-in-law now thinks that she's calling the shots in that house. And if OP's husband gets his way, she will. I'm gobsmacked at the delusion of the husband. She's lonely. Then go to bingo, volunteer at the library, join garden club. There's about 1 million ways to be able-bodied 65-year-old woman can entertain herself and keep herself busy and engaged. One of those ways is to not put the moves on your daughter-in-law's dad. Heck, she initially moved in because of finances. Get a job. Not the jerk. I honestly don't know how she can stay after this stunt. Oh, come on. Don't be so harsh on mother-in-law. We all have needs. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to figure it out, or I was going back to my mom's? My husband works 12-hour shifts. Anything over 10 on a normal 40-hour work week is double time, and therefore he's been working 12-hour shifts 5 days a week to save money. Now for the backstory. We have a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-month-old. When I was 6 months pregnant, the apartment building we were living in was condemned. Mold and mice issues that we didn't know about due to having 3 cats and the mold not being visible. We were put up in a hotel until about a week before my due date, during which time we searched for housing and found nothing. We ended up having to stay with my mom. I had my daughter a week later, and my husband found us a place 2 days later. Now, it's important to note that I begged him to just let us stay at my mom's house when he told me where he had got us a place. For one, he works all the time, and he wasn't able to take time off, so I wouldn't have help. And for two, the school district in the area he was moving us to is partial remote learning. Short staffing, so the kids were only going to be at school twice a week and the rest at home because it rotated between kids. So not only was I going to be caring for a newborn alone, but I would also have to deal with schooling my other kids. One who has a heavy IEP and strong learning disabilities, and I knew I would not mentally have the bandwidth to do this. But my husband insisted because he didn't want to live with my mom and because the place he found us was in the house next to his best friend. He used the excuse that if I needed anyone, his buddy's wife was right there and I could have playdates because she has 5 kids. I wasn't interested in any of this, but he still insisted and made me feel like I was being irrational for wanting to give up a housing opportunity to stay at my mother's. But regardless, we have 5 people now living in a 2-bedroom tiny apartment, paying $1,600 a month with nothing included. It's so small that we can't even fit a dining room table for the kids to eat, and they instead eat on the couch, which doubles into my pull-out bed. Since we moved here, his friend and his kids are always here. Since the day after we moved in here, those kids have been banging on my door 3 to 4 times a day looking for my kids and waking up the baby every single day. Every night when my husband gets out of work, his buddy calls him outside at least twice, going on store runs, dump runs, or just to hang out for no less than 2 hours. They're constantly loud, and his buddy is always firing off rounds in the yard, as well as us being right on a river, so I don't even trust my kids going outdoors. I've brought up all of these points several times. I'm always met with a, "Babe, it'll all be fine. I'm saving money. We won't be here forever." That's it. I had 0 time to recover from birth, and I'm so exhausted, mentally and physically, that I'm having serious doubts of my marriage because of the constant resentment. 14 years, and I've never felt like this before. And last night, I ended up snapping because I needed a break. I passed the baby off to my husband, and I went outside to take a breather and be alone. Literally, the only place that's possible. And as soon as I walked outside, his friend saw me and walked over to talk to me and asked where my husband was because he needed to run to the store and wanted to know if he wanted to go. My husband ended up going. I got a total of maybe 30 seconds of alone time. So I lost it and told him he had 2 choices. Get us the heck out of here because my mental well-being is at stake, or I was going back to my mom's. He says he doesn't understand what I expect him to do because there's nothing available. I told him, figure it out. Now he says I'm putting too much pressure on him because he's stressed too, and apparently it's all he thinks about. But I can't do this anymore. Am I the jerk? Edit. I have a job. I'm not worried about money, and he shouldn't be worried either. So I'm not sure why he's working so much overtime every single week. He brings home enough to cover all the bills in one paycheck with doing overtime in just 1 week. Adding my weekly paycheck of roughly $580 and we're set. The issue is that we can't find other housing. The reason I want to go to my mom's is because she has 3 extra bedrooms and she has told us repeatedly to take them. She's lonely and wants us there. My dad passed last year and has all the extra space. But my husband doesn't want to be there because he doesn't want to live with anyone and be under anyone's thumb, despite the fact that him and his mother have been talking about us all buying a house together. So it's just an excuse he's giving me. This was not how it was in our last place. We had a 5-bedroom apartment, so plenty of space, and we were there for 11 years. We didn't have neighbor kids banging on our door 24/7 or entertaining guests falling off on my shoulders. We had space. Now I have no space, and I'm constantly entertaining, schooling, and nursing a baby. So no, it wasn't like this before, and I can't handle the transition, but he can because his social life is better than it's been for years. Not the jerk. Call your mom ASAP and get out of there. So there was nothing else available except where his best friend lives? I'm calling BS. Take the kids and go back to your mom's. He can stay in the apartment with his friend. Am I the jerk for not sharing a free meal with my anti-Instagram boyfriend? I post my food pics from where I go out to eat on Instagram. It's just for fun. I spend like 30 minutes a week on it tops. My boyfriend is a very sweet guy in many ways, but one thing that I'm not so much a fan of is that he often hops on the bandwagon of hating on innocent things. Not just not liking something, but making sure everyone knows he doesn't like it, even if nobody asked. I can't help but notice a theme: pumpkin spice lattes, pouty selfies, Taylor Swift, etc. As you can guess, he's not a fan of the food pics and thinks it's very annoying and cringe. He doesn't even follow my Insta, even though he has an account. Even though I don't have very many followers, I have started getting occasional offers and invitations from restaurants in my city to try out their food for free in exchange for a review. Nothing crazy, no steak dinner so far, but I've gotten a few sandwiches and several baked goods. Well, I just hit the big leagues and got invited to a new restaurant that includes a free appetizer and entree for me and one guest. I immediately invited one of my Instagram friends who I have gone out to eat with on several occasions and who also enjoys taking food photos. I told my boyfriend, and he's upset that I'm not taking him and says I'm doing it out of spite. I really think I'm not. If the restaurant is giving me free food in exchange for a post, I'm going to put more effort into the post and spend a few extra minutes making sure that I actually get very good shots, and I'd rather do that with someone who isn't going to sigh and roll their eyes through the whole thing. Also, I think it's pretty audacious of him to be actively unsupportive of an activity that hurts no one, but then also expect a benefit when it's actually successful. Your gut feeling about this is absolutely correct. You're there to do a job essentially, and his bad attitude would be a hindrance to you getting it done right. Not the jerk. I want to also gently point out, as a married woman of 21 years, that for a relationship to work and be healthy and happy, your partner needs to be supportive of the things you're excited about. They don't have to be interested themselves, but they do need to encourage and lift you up. Your boyfriend is disdainful of your passion. Did you know disdain has been scientifically proven to be one of 4 predictors of future divorce? True story. A person's character is their playbook. It dictates every move we make and defines who we are. The person you're describing takes joy in robbing other people of theirs. You're not the only person he does this to, as you've said. He is also someone who feels entitled to the spoils of other people's success after putting a lot of energy into knocking them down a peg with his disparagements. This is his character. I hope you see that. This isn't the behavior of a sweet guy. It's mean-spirited, petty, and selfish. Of course he has other qualities, but all of this is right there too. So coded into his playbook of character is these poor qualities. That means that they show up in all kinds of subtle ways. I bet if you look for them, you'll find them. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend sounds exhausting with his "I'm cooler than everybody because I hate popular things" attitude. Go and have fun with someone who isn't a jerk. Enjoy your dinner. Not the jerk. I agree with your boyfriend that it is annoying and cringy, but it is important for you. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Ask him how he would feel if you were to belittle his hobbies and interests. You did the right thing in not inviting him to the restaurant. Am I the jerk for making my wife pay for something that she gave away? My wife has a bad habit of giving away or lending out things that don't belong to her. I've lost count of how many times I go to look for something of mine only for her to say she lent it to somebody. She also takes forever to get the item back. She once lent my stuff to a coworker and refused to ask for it back for a month. And I'll never forget the day my usually quiet, reserved son snapped at her for trying to give away his Nintendo Switch. If I wasn't also fed up with her behavior, I would have washed his mouth out with soap. I've had countless talks with her, but she continues to do this. My son and I have resorted to locking up anything we don't want touched, which is something we shouldn't have to do in our own home. Last week, I won a $300 tent in a raffle. I had no plans on using it, so I was selling it. When I found a buyer and went to look for it, I couldn't find it. When I asked my wife, she said she gave it to a friend of ours. I got mad at her and said that she had no right to give it away. Her defense was since I didn't spend money on it and I wasn't planning on using it, it made sense to give it away for free. I told her that wasn't her decision to make, but she just kept repeating herself. I had enough of this and said she's either going to pay me herself or get the money from who she gave it to, and if she didn't, I'd get law enforcement involved. This issue eventually got around to her family. While they did say she should have talked to me first, they also reprimanded me for asking for payment. They reasoned that since I didn't actually buy the tent, I didn't lose any money, and it went to a friend who could actually put it to good use. I got several texts saying I should be ashamed for extorting her for money. I think I have every right to want to be paid for something of mine that was taken, but everyone keeps emphasizing the fact that I didn't technically buy the tent and didn't want it, so I have nothing to be upset about. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She absolutely shouldn't have done that. What it sounds like is your family and friends don't understand the magnitude of the situation. Of course they think it's absurd because they don't know that she does this all the time. You're just finally fed up with it and you've put your foot down. Honestly, sounds like you should have done that a while ago. How would she feel if her stuff just went missing? Tell her she stops, and if she doesn't, I would give her a taste of her own medicine. I would take the things of hers and just give them away, even if I just pretended I did just to prove a point. Sounds petty, I know, but she clearly isn't getting it any other way. Am I the jerk for refusing to eat the eggs my girlfriend made for me? I, 28 male, spent last night at the apartment of my girlfriend of 3 months, 24 female. We usually hang out at my place, but this weekend her roommates were out of town and she had the place all to herself. This morning she treated me to breakfast, which was a nice gesture, but that included sunny side eggs with runny yolk, and I've always had a thing about runny yolks. I told her that and she looked upset. She said I could have told her while she was making the eggs. I said that I was sorry, I forgot. She was acting like I was just being a picky eater and not appreciative of her gesture. Honestly, her reaction freaked me out a bit because it seemed so over the top, but I'm still feeling bad about it and wondering if I am the jerk here for just refusing it. Additional info. People asked me for more information about what was actually said and how things transpired. I was in the kitchen and I could see that she was breaking eggs into the pan, but wasn't paying attention as we were talking about other things. So I saw she was making eggs, but didn't notice what kind. She didn't ask me how I'd like them, and I also didn't remember to ask. I only noticed it was sunny side up when we sat down to eat. I said, "Oh baby, I forgot you didn't know. I have a thing with runny eggs." She didn't say anything for a second, then grabbed the plate and went back to the pan. I told her I could do it, but she told me she'd do it. She came back like 1 minute later and I told her thanks. Then I noticed she seemed upset. I asked her what was the matter. She said I could have told her how I liked my eggs. That's when I said I'm sorry, I forgot. And then she said, "I didn't know you were such a picky eater," and remained upset for most of our breakfast while I tried to change the subject. I thought her reaction, even getting upset with something so minor, was indeed over the top, and that's the first time I've seen her behave like this. It freaked me out because we're still in a new relationship and getting to know each other. Did she know you don't like runny yolks? You're not the jerk for refusing to eat something you don't like, but you're making it seem like she had no right to a reaction. I guess next time, a small bit of communication on both parts will fix this. Also, how do you forget you don't like sunny side up eggs, which are the best kind, by the way? Excuse me? Watch her make the eggs and forget to tell her you don't like sunny side up? You're the jerk because you sat there and watched her making the eggs and said nothing, and then felt away when she was visibly upset. Insist on repeatedly texting the wrong number? Eventually, you won't like my response. Texting the wrong number. It happens. It's not really a big deal normally. Usually I just ignore it if I think it's spam or politely text back to let them know they have the wrong number. For some reason, there was one person who kept doing this every time they took a holiday for about 12 to 18 months. It was about 5 times total and always in the middle of the night for me. Texts were always asking how their horse was. Each time I would respond and say it was the wrong number. Each time the person would write back and apologize, saying that where they boarded their horse had a number 1 digit different, hence the mistake. Again, I get that it happens, but after twice, wouldn't you just program the correct number in your phone? When it happened a 4th time, I politely texted back, asking if they were ever planning on actually programming the correct number in their phone. They replied saying, yes, they would do that immediately. I was about to block the number, but I decided to wait and have some fun if they texted me again. Predictably, a few months later, they did. Hi, just checking in to see how my horse is doing. I hope he's okay. Me. Unfortunately, he's not doing well. I tried calling in the large animal vet, but they said he's not going to make it. We're about to take him out to the back 40 and put him down, old Yeller style. Let me know how you want his remains. Alternatively, we can process it and save the meat for you. Stranger. Well, I realize now that I texted the wrong number, but you don't have to be mean about it. And they never texted me again. Also, to be clear, I'm very much an animal lover. I was also very much annoyed. Since numerous people have asked me why I didn't just block the number after the first text, I do that now. This was a few years ago. I was a pretty private person then, and not a lot of people had my number, so it was really rare for me to get a wrong number text. Now I block them, especially with the excess spam texting these days. Also, if I had done that back then, I wouldn't be able to amuse myself and others remembering this story. My parents are demanding I pay rent and calling me a freeloader just because I have a video game addiction. I, 22 female, have been diagnosed with depression and gaming addiction. I hold a stable job making a very good salary, and I've moved back in with my parents to save up for a down payment as well as their general concern over my mental state. To be frank, I have no hobbies other than gaming, and the only social life I have is playing games with IRL and online friends. However, after I graduated university and came back, my parents have elected to smash one of my monitors, cut my Ethernet cord, and now physically taken my PC due to arguments over my gaming habits. After work, I come home and play games until I go to sleep, and over the weekends, I play games the entire day. It's been going on since 2 weeks ago, and they're refusing to give me back my PC, even though my psychologist says that this is doing more harm than anything. They call me childish for not being able to control my own habits despite the fact that I'm holding my job. This has caused me to become more depressed than usual, with my days now often spent 95% of the time with me in bed aimlessly scrolling through social media. I'm back on my antidepressants, and they seem to think that this is the better alternative. I have voiced this opinion countless times, but they refuse to listen to me or my psychologist, and I have a letter written from them. I used to pay a much above average monthly rent for my 1-bedroom and washroom that I share with my siblings. However, this month I refuse to pay my rent since they're treating me like I'm a kid. And as a kid, they don't have to pay rent. They're now calling me a vindictive jerk and a freeloader because I'm no longer contributing to the household. Edit for info. Some answers to questions I see in the comments. I moved back since I live in the same city, and the logic goes, if you're paying rent anyways, might as well pay it at home to keep the money in the family. I pay for half the electricity, Wi-Fi, and groceries alongside my rent. My rent by itself for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath would be considered way above average. However, I still end up saving money because when I live by myself, I do not cook and order takeout. I shower every day when I come home, just not on Saturday. I eat 2 meals a day, morning and night, since I do not like eating outside the house. I don't cook. I have my own schedule where I will eat dinner, but when I feel like it, which is usually after they finish eating, after which I will do the dishes. Laundry and vacuuming the room is whenever I feel like it's getting too messy. I've paid for rent since I moved back, which would be since August of 2022. I've paid for soundproofing of my room so there's less noise when I game. The majority of arguments are due to me not coming down for dinner when they finish making it. What caused them to destroy my properties the 2 times were 1. Not willing to go to my younger sibling's school play, 2. Sleeping in until noon or afternoon during the weekends. You are correct to assume I do not get any exercise, but I get 6 hours of sleep regularly on the weekdays and however many hours during the weekends. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her parents? Please let us know. All I know is I really want to play some Red Dead Redemption 2 right now. Oh man, that game is so good.
Imagine your spouse's sibling confesses their love to you, and you're not sure whether you should tell your spouse about it. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.